Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto Rakuto Senin Reborn. Part 1. I hope you loved the first one. If you guys enjoy this, what if? Comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends. And check out the description. So let's start the video. I can hardly believe that demon brat. Kahara muttered angrily. Figures he'd fool that idiotic shinobi council to his side, but to get the daimyo on his side as well. Well, the Shodai's wife and the Yondame's wife claimed to have held the demon before the brat did. Oh please, Hamura, that demon had something to do with that story. And this so-called harbinger of Yami obviously is in league with the demon to bootleg us. Quiet, both of you, Danzo ordered as he continued to walk on. We are in a very tight spot here. I can't allow you two to do something foolish and have our standing lowered. Demon or not, the boy has a lot of sway over our actions right now. We are very limited in what we can do without arousing suspicion from both him, the Hokage, and the daimyo. Both elders silenced themselves and grunted in annoyance. The demon brat had them by the balls and they couldn't do anything about it. I am heading to the root headquarters, Danzo told the two elders. I need some time to think before the announcement. Hi, they nodded and went their separate ways. None of them noticed the 6 pairs of Rinnegan eyes that gazed at them from afar. So what you're telling me is, Tsunade growled in anger and disgust. Does my great-uncle sense a dozen Sharingan signatures and Jijisen's DNA in Danzo's arm? Naruto nodded in the affirmative. Danzo truly has fallen far, Daimyo muttered in disgust. He's as bad as Orochimaru. I agree. Tsunade looked at the Rakuto Senin, so I take it your paths are going to take care of it. Naruto smirked, yep. They need a chance to stretch their legs every now and again, you know. Danzo finally reached the inner sanctum of his root headquarters. Now he had to think about how he was going to implement the plan he had made with Orochimaru, while figuring out how to coincide it with what the village elders wanted as well. This would not be an easy task as Orochimaru wanted complete control over Konoha and Hai no Kuni in general. The elders simply wanted to employ what they thought was best for Konoha and allow no one to stop them because they knew best. They didn't like Orochimaru, so this would pose a problem, one which Danzo had been planning on rectifying once he made the office of Hokage. However, now due to the new Rakuto Senin his position was torn away temporarily and he'd be subjugated to that difficult test before he could return in 6 months. He knew he had to play smart with whatever the test was so as to not draw suspicion. He had warned Hamura and Kaharu that he had a feeling the meeting wouldn't end well for them. He told them not to speak unless spoken to due to this and they simply shrugged and compiled. Lucky for them it might have been that had saved them from the terrible wrath of the Hokage and daimyo. Speaking of terrible wrath, it was then he got a cold sensation that he was being watched. And the observers were not too happy. Danzo jolted up out of his seat and shouted out, "Who's there?" There was silence for a moment before he heard a voice nearby, "Didn't I order you to disband this Anbu unit of yours?" Danzo. Danzo turned and before him stood his old comrade. Sarutobi Hiruzen. Once Sandame Hokage of Konoha, now the Rakuto Senin's Naraka path. Hiruzen, Danzo said simply. Disobeying the Hokage's orders is a serious offense, Danzo, his old teammate said simply. But I can see now that this runs even deeper. It runs straight into betrayal. Betrayal. I have not betrayed Konoha. I only seek to make it the most powerful and feared hidden village in the world. I admire your patriotism, came another voice behind Danzo who turned to see Hashirama and his sensei walking towards him only to stop a few feet away. But this is not the way to go. Especially due to what you did to the Uchiha clan, Tobirama added. What? Danzo shouted outraged. Hiruzen was just as much involved in that as I was. Yes, we know, came a fourth voice, who ironically was Yondaime. Hiruzen already informed us. Well, we weren't happy with what had occurred, Tobirama spoke up. He did bring up one important factor. You were the one that convinced him to make it the entire Uchiha clan. So what if I did? It was necessary. What if the remaining Uchiha members had revolted due to their family members being slaughtered? Did you ever even consider that they'd be foolish to try such a thing? Such a massacre would weaken them and any attempt to revolt could have been stopped by the other clans. Did you really have to kill the civilian Uchiha as well? Or even the children of the shinobi? What could they have possibly done? Then blame Hiruzen. It was he who approved it. Danzo yelled. And again we say it was you who convinced him and everyone else that there was no other option than to slaughter all of them, Minato stated. Massacre aside, you did something even more horrendous than leading to the deaths of nearly all of them, Hashirama spoke with a very cold voice and with an icy gaze. Don't think we haven't sensed them on your arm or in your right eye socket. We aren't stupid or ignorant, Danzo. Especially with the Rinnegan we can very well see those chakra signatures. Not only that, Tobirama spoke with equal harshness. You also stole the DNA of my brother. Danzo swallowed but his face didn't change. I did what was necessary to strengthen Konoha. Strengthen Konoha? Minato spat. or strengthen yourself. You sought to gain power over Konoha, Hiruzen frowned. I suspect a rise in the civilian council's boldness was due to you as well. They were quick to see I was the perfect choice for Hokage, Danzo stated. Not that whore who now sits in my place. Crash. Within an instant, Danzo found himself getting friendly with the ground as Hashirama displayed an excellent display of fist-to-skull combat against Danzo. He was snarling with rage, that whore, Danzo, happens to be my granddaughter. It is because of your arrogance, pride, and lust for power that you are not deserving of the title of Hokage. Hashirama turned away disgusted and Danzo struggled to get up. Suddenly, Danzo bolted in an attempt to escape the past Hokages. He suddenly found himself unable to move. He looked down and noticed his body wrapped in chains. Chakra chains. Only one person he knew of knew how to do that. He looked up. Before him was Uzumaki Kushina, the chains jutting from her hands. Behind her was Uzumaki Mito, an unamused look on her face. Going somewhere, Danzo? Kushina sneered. The Biramani, Mito spoke. Check his memory for anything else we may have missed. Aburama nodded as he placed his hand on Danzo's head. His and the other path's eyes widened at the memories they received. Naruto's eyes widened as he stifled a gasp, gaining the attention of the Hokage and Daimyo, who had agreed to stay with Naruto until his paths returned. Tsunade blinked. Naruto, what is it? Danzo has been conspiring against us for a long time, Naruto muttered angrily. He's been working with Orochimaru for years. In exchange for making Danzo the Hokage, he would help Orochimaru become the Fire Daimyo. Be what both the Hokage and the Daimyo. How long has he been conspiring with that damned serpent? Daimyo was enraged. Years, like I said. Damn him, Tsunade growled. When I get my hands on him I'm going to smash him straight to hell. Naruto laughed with a hint of dark foreboding slithered in, I think my paths have got that handled. Crack. Danzo flew headfirst into the nearby wall after being delivered another blow from the paths. The paths were in a complete and utter rage due to their discovery of Danzo's betrayal. The Warhawk hadn't even gotten the chance to use the Shodai's DNA or the numerous Sharingans he had. They attacked too swiftly, too brutally. Not too mercilessly. Danzo was a beaten wreck crumpled on the floor. He weakly turned his gaze upwards into the burning Rinnegan eyes of the six paths. Any last words, Danzo? Kushina snarled at the bandaged man. Just one, Danzo muttered out. Root. Almost instantly a couple dozen Root members surrounded them. Destroy the intruders. Hi, Danzo-sama, one answered and all of them attacked. With that, the Rootenin charged at the six paths. Shinra Tensei. Minato called, blasting away half of the Rootenin. Mito summoned a katana in each hand and gave a deadly display of her swordsmanship to the Rootenin. None of the Root in her way survived. More arrived and Tobirama waved his hand, Suiton. Suryuiden no Jutsu. The water dragon arose from the moisture in the air and dispatched the Root with ease. A few, however, did manage to get out of the way and they were met with a flurry of punches via one Uzumaki Kushina. Another wave of Root arrived and Hashirama stepped forward. He went through the hand signs and shouted out, Mokuton. Sashiki no Jutsu. The pre-top path thrusted his arm forward, firing wooden spikes from his arms that impaled the Rootenin. Minato looked at the few remaining Rootenin and uttered two words, Bansho Tenin. The Roots suddenly found themselves flying towards the former Yondaime Hokage. As they did so, Hiruzen jumped over his successor to the title and shouted out, Kaiten. Karyuiden. A stream of fire erupted from Hiruzen's mouth and consumed the Rootenin mid-flight. Little was left of them but ashes. When the paths were done massacring the Rootenin they became painfully aware that Danzo was missing. Damn it, Minato cursed. The rat got away. Hard to kill as a damn cockroach, Kushina snarled. Come on, Hashirama called. He couldn't have gotten far. Tobirama. On it, the human path replied as he concentrated. Found him. Come on. Danzo had almost made it out of the Root headquarters. He had to get out of Konoha. The paths knew what he had done and that probably meant the brat did as well. This also meant that the Hokage and Daimyo knew about it as well. He would be branded a traitor and he needed to flee so as not to be executed. That damn brat, Danzo growled inwardly. He ruined everything. Nevertheless, I will take hold over Konoha. I will raise it to become the mighty and feared village it should be. Going somewhere, Danzo? Came a voice startling the Warhawk. Suddenly, he saw a yellow flash in front of him and the next thing he knew he was flying backwards, only to be hit again smashing him into the ground via a foot to the face. Danzo opened his eyes. Above him stood his sensei, Senju Tobirama. You won't get away again, Danzo. Then? You leave me no choice. Sensei. Danzo jolted up and tore off his bandages, revealing his Sharingan-covered arm. He flashed through the hand signs and cried out, Mokuton. Makisatsu Shibari no Jutsu. Danzo held his arm out to his old sensei and it instantly turned into wood and fired straight at him. But before it could reach Tobirama, Mito smashed down from above them and crushed the wooden appendage into the ground. Said wooden appendage then sprouted jointed which began to wrap around Mito, immobilizing her. at least until two giant blades shot from her back. These blades cut through the wood technique the instant they sprouted, and Mito jumped backwards out of Danzo's hold. "Peyton. Kiryu-eden," called out the voice of the Naraka path as a rain of fire fell upon Danzo, who swiftly ended his and flashed through another, Mokuton. Makuja Heki. Immediately, a wall of wood clashed in front of the fire and managed to resist it enough to stop the fireballs. He thought he had a breather until a voice cried out behind him, "Rasengan." Danzo felt the swirling ball of chakra smash into his back. He barely managed to utter out, "Izanagi." The next thing Minato knew, Danzo was standing facing him just a few feet away. "What? How did you?" "Izanagi," Danzo answered. "A special technique of the Sharingan. With it, I can remove the boundaries between illusion and reality. You cannot kill me. Everyone can die, Danzo," Minato frowned. "Even the original Rakuto Sennin did." "Indeed he did, but of old age. That shall be me, and you shall not be able to stop me. Six paths or not. We shall see about that," came Kushina's voice as she landed beside Minato. "Kuchius no Jutsu." But the large poof of smoke, a giant tarantula-like spider that possessed two large Rinnegan eyes and six small Rinnegan eyes around them. It was at least 3 times the size of Kushina. The spider shot its upper body into the sky and moved its abdomen under its belly. It fired a stream of webbing at Danzo. The fast movement of the spider had put him on alert, so he jumped out of the way of the stream, however, his foot got caught. The spider charged, eager to catch it, praying. Danzo drew out a kunai, Futen. Shinkijin. This effectively turns the kunai into a wind-infused sword. He swung and injured the approaching summon. The beast screeched in pain and retreated up a nearby wall. Danzo then used it to slice himself free of the webbing. He quickly got to his feet, and his reward for doing so was a kick straight to the face, thanks to Kushina. The strike caused Danzo to fly backwards towards a waiting Tabarama, who promptly called out his technique, Suiton. Sashoha. The giant vortex of water shot from the ground and threatened to crush Danzo under the power of its waves. Danzo, however, countered mid-flight, Futen. Shinku Renpa. The blades of wind cut through the waves of water and Danzo landed feet first. Mito then appeared behind him with a katana in hand, "Take this you bastard." The blade sliced through Danzo, who proceeded to shout out, "Izanagi." The next thing Mito knew, Danzo was beside her, away from her blade, with another attack already prepared, Futen. Shinkijoku. The shotgun blast of wind blades shot from Danzo's mouth. Mito quickly substituted herself for her husband, who proceeded to absorb the chakra attack. Danzo's eyes widened in surprise as Hashirama smirked, "Mokuton. Sashiki no Jutsu." The wooden spikes penetrated deep into Danzo's torso, but he didn't flinch, "Izanagi." Again, Danzo appeared unharmed. Kashima frowned, "Damn, this is getting annoying. Something's got to prevent that technique from working," Minato said. "Every technique has some form of weakness. So then, let's find it," Hiruzen replied. "Doten. Dusakiryu." The large dragon made of earth and rock erupted from the ground and charged in its seeming glycicidal strike towards its opponent. Danzo jumped forward towards the rock dragon and, in midair, spun around to be parallel with the floor and shouted out, "Futen. Rinkuiden." The wind bullet hit the dragon under the head, knocking the attack up a bit so that it passed harmlessly over Danzo, who then attempted to get back onto his feet. The key word being attempted. "Mokuton. Jubaku Isu." Shouted the pre-top path and wooden branches shot up from the ground in case Danzo midair. Danzo was now effectively immobilized. The 6 paths gathered in front of the encased traitor. Danzo began to laugh and taunt them, "Fools, as long as I have Izanagi you cannot kill me. It's a technique that warps reality itself." Hiruzen grunted, "Danzo, for too long have I let your actions slide. No more. What I am about to do, not even Izanagi can't save you." The next words his old comrade spoke startled Danzo, "Kuchius no Jutsu. The king of hell." With that, a monstrous white and black head with Rinnegan eyes, violet fire surrounding it, and the kanji of king on its head, arose from the ground. Danzo immediately felt his tongue protrude far out of his mouth, much farther than it should have gone. Hiruzen frowned, "Danzo, you are going to answer one question of mine. Did you do what you did for yourself or for the village?" Danzo managed to mutter out, "I did it for the village, of course." Judgment was passed. The king of hell's purple hand-like tongue proceeded to grab the appendage extending from Danzo's mouth. Danzo attempted to stop a supposed king of hell, Izanagi. Nothing happened. The king of hell, without stopping, tore the appendage out of Danzo and devoured it. It was at that moment that the king of hell unsummoned and Danzo's body went limp. Hiruzen sighed, "I am saddened that the truth has been revealed." Hashirama sighed, "If you lie, Lord Enma will pull out your tongue. I see the old saying is indeed true." "Indeed," Minato nodded in agreement. It was then that more Rutanen appeared, 24 at least stood before the 6 paths. "What have you done to Danzo-sama? You shall all." Kushina snapped her fingers, and suddenly the giant spider summon dropped from the ceiling in front of the Rutanen. The members of Root didn't stand a chance. Here is inside, we should get back to Naruto. Sanadahem can send Anbu to finish the rest of Root off. I'd say the spider's doing a good enough job of that, Hashirama muttered. Kushhead buckled a bit at Tobirama's comment, come on, let's head back. The six paths appeared before Naruto, Tsunade, and the fire daimyo. Naruto smirked, what took you so long? We were about to announce the return of the Rakuto Sennin. Danzo was a damn slippery cockroach, Mito admitted. Ed? Tsunade asked. Ed? And the base. I have a summon dealing with the remaining Root, Kushina answered. But you might want to send Anbu to deal with any who may have escaped or any of the content within the base itself. Very well, Anbu. Instantly, 3 Anbu appeared. Hi, Hikage-sama. Take 4 teams and search the Root headquarters. Be on guard, we don't know how many are left. Age Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto spoke, and a single shadow clone appeared. My shadow clone will show you the way. Arigato, Rakuto-sama. Naruto's eyebrow twitched in annoyance as the shadow clone led the Anbu to the base. Tsunade and the path snickered and the daimyo couldn't help but grin at the Sennin's reaction. Well then Rakuto-sama, are you ready? Naruto stifled a groan and nodded. I was made ready. The denizens of Konoha had gathered, ready to hear whatever announcement was going to be made. They were chatting among themselves until the Hokage and the daimyo appeared before them on the platform. The daimyo spoke, people on Konohagakure. As you know, I am the fire daimyo of Hai no Kuni. You are gathered here today for a revelation. The truth shall be revealed before all of you. You all have committed a crime against your past Hokages and now your guilt shall be unveiled. The people of Konoha were stunned. They were being called out for a crime. What could they have possibly done? The crime that involves one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the daimyo said. There was instant outrage, but the daimyo immediately silenced them. Silence. You all abused and beat a boy who is your savior. I am going to reveal this right now. Naruto has the Kyuubi no Kitsune sealed within him. No. He is not the fox. He is its jailer. He is the only reason Kyuubi is not rampaging through the village killing you all. They were silent. Most didn't know what to think. The daimyo continued, you are all ignorant fools. If you noticed what I had said earlier, I called him Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. That is because Naruto is the son of the Yondaime Hokage. The collective gasp echoed through the crowd. There was no way. In your search for a scapegoat, you sought out the container of the Kyuubi. Do you know how foolish that was? If you had accidentally killed the boy, the Kyuubi would have been free. And this time there would be no great seal masters to save your ungrateful hides. For a majority of Konoha's citizens, a thick lump formed in their throats. Naruto was taken from this village 2 years ago to be trained to fulfill a duty given to him since birth. He has now returned, not as a genin of Konoha, but as the reincarnation of the Rakuto Sennin, the founder of the art of ninjutsu. In that instant, Naruto appeared next to the daimyo and the crowd was shocked into silence. Even more so when 6 familiar figures appeared behind Naruto. Many shinobi were swallowed. Naruto smiled, greetings, Konoha. I am Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, the Rakuto Sennin, and these are my 6 paths. Senju Hashirama, Senju Tobirama, Sarutobi Hiruzen, Namikaze Minato, Uzumaki Mito, and Uzumaki Kushina. I come to you now to reveal to the world that the founder of the shinobi world is alive again. There was a brief silence before Naruto spoke again. I have returned. It was a tense night for Orochimaru as he waited for news of what had occurred in Konoha with the civilian council and the new Rakuto Sennin. He wondered what had ultimately happened with them. Obviously, they weren't going to have any more power in Konoha save for a couple of benefits, and even then that was a maybe. Danzo needed to keep a low profile so he wouldn't be discovered as Orochimaru's plan to conquer Hai no Kuni did involve Danzo. However, just as he thought this, a messenger came into his lab. Orochimaru-sama, a word from Konoha. Danzo and Root have been discovered and destroyed by the 6 paths. What? Apparently, the former Nidaime Hokage sensed Danzo-sama's Sharingan eyes, the messenger stuttered out seeing his lord's rage. The messenger had heard of Orochimaru's poor treatment of messengers who brought him bad news. It was never pleasant. And this proved true here as well, for within seconds of delivering the message, Orochimaru tore him apart in a scene best not described to the normal civilian. Damn him, Orochimaru muttered angrily. Damn that and those foolish 6 paths of his. He set me back Kami knows how long due to his meddling. I will find a way to defeat you. I am immortal. I cannot die against a person who claims to be the Rakuto Sennin. Naruto woke up the morning after the announcement exhausted. Not physically, but mentally. The number of apologies and people wishing to see the return of the Rakuto Sennin got him both annoyed and tired very fast. And they wouldn't stop coming. Naruto did appreciate it that people cared, but the thing was he knew they only really cared because of his heritage and because they felt guilty. If his heritage hadn't been revealed and only their folly for their treatment of him in his younger years was revealed, he doubted that they'd have the same reaction. Plus, the whole situation was very repetitive. Which made it very annoying even with his newfound patience. Nevertheless, he was happy. He was going to have his first real and official date with Hinata. There was little that could foul his mood now, even those villagers who had begun to become more of an annoyance than someone he sought to please. After he was dressed in his seinen attire, he quickly moved to the Hyuga compound. He sought out Hinata, who was training outside with the Rasengan. He smiled. She liked the technique and he was proud that she did. It was his father's technique, only to be taught to those he truly trusted. And he trusted Hinata completely. He walked over to her. "Good morning, Hinata-chan." Having walked up into her blind spot by accident, she jumped and attempted to use the Rasengan to strike the offender. However, the ball of chakra hit an invisible wall suddenly and was instantly absorbed by the young Rakuto Senin. Hinata gasped slightly and frowned. "Naruto-kun. Don't do that. You scared me." Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Sorry Hinata-chan. You should be. I almost hit you with the Rasengan. I can absorb ninjutsu, Hinata-chan, Naruto reminded her. Even so. Naruto cut her off by moving behind her and wrapping his arms around her. He proceeded to whisper into her ear. "Hinata-chan. Have you faith in me?" Hinata blushed deeply and shivered in pleasure at the closeness. "Of course I have faith in you, Naruto-kun." Naruto spun her around so that she faced him. "Then you have nothing to worry about. Stop fretting over something so little, Hinata-chan. You call nearly shoving an ranked into your skull something little. Little for someone like me. Naruto-kun, you might be a little too overconfident with your newfound abilities. Maybe just a little," Naruto chuckled. Suddenly, a new voice entered the picture. "Oh, and what might we have here?" Naruto and Hinata turned to see Hinata's father, Hiashi, approaching them. Hinata stepped backward so she was leaning against Naruto's chest. "Hello, Oda-sama." Hiashi looked at the scene and then at his daughter. "I assume there's something the two of you wish to tell me." "Hi, Oda-sama," Hinata answered and Naruto followed up. "I am currently in a relationship with your daughter, Hiashi-sama." Hiashi's eyes widened at the maturity the boy now had, however, it faded away almost instantly. "I see, and when were you going to tell me this?" Naruto blinked a couple of times, then shrugged. "To be honest, I never quite thought about it. We sort of got together when I was here incognito a couple of years ago." "I see. And why didn't you ask me if you could date my daughter?" "No one was supposed to know I was here in Konoha that day, and the whole thing with us getting into a relationship wasn't exactly something I had come to Konoha to do. It was something I decided to do after overhearing a conversation with a couple others of the Konoha 11. Hiashi obviously seemed displeased. "And why didn't you inform me at least that you two had gotten into a relationship?" Hinata finally had enough, Oda-sama. Naruto-kun had to keep himself a secret when he was here. Either of us are either asking for permission to be in a relationship or informing you that we would have blown that cover. Besides, I love Naruto-kun and he loves me back. Nothing you say or do will ever make me leave him. Are you defying me?" "Hiashi," Naruto said in a commanding tone. Hiashi stifled a gasp. The boy had an air of authority, one that even was convincing him to subconsciously follow. Hiashi frowned. "What is it?" Hinata is a grown woman and a good soul. She can make good decisions on her own without you having to interfere because of something you don't want. I could care less about what you think she should do for the good of the clan. I love her and she loves me in return. You aren't going to separate us, and if I need to I will subdue you right here and now." It was a threat and one Hiashi knew the boy could back up with ease. According to what Kakashi had told him after the previous day's announcement, the boy was now considered ranked, someone that Hiashi knew he could never beat. Hiashi half grunted, half sighed. He looked at the boy before him and spoke. "Fine, boy. But if you ever hurt her, you are going to suffer a severe lack of limbs. Ranked shinobi or not. I would never do anything to hurt Hinata. I swear on my title as the Rakuto Senin." Hiashi nodded before turning and walking away. Hinata looked at her boyfriend. "Thank you Naruto-kun." "Anything for you, Hinata-chan," Naruto smiled genuinely. "Now, do you mind if we go to Ichiraku? I haven't been there in 2 years, you know." "Of course, Naruto-kun," Hinata smiled back. "I would love to go there for our date." With that, Hinata latched onto Naruto's arm and they both walked out of the compound towards the world's best ramen shop. Nearby, up in a tree, Jiraiya was watching and giggling. "Oh, they're getting so close. I bet I'll get a lot of material from them one day soon." "Ahem," came a voice behind Jiraiya. He froze and slowly turned around to see Naruto's 6 paths on the tree behind him. Kushina was at the forefront, arms crossed and foot tapping. "What was that about speaking to my son and his girl?" Jiraiya swallowed nervously. "Well, you see, it's kinda-like." Kushina cracked her knuckles and a series of terrified and painful screams echoed throughout Konoha as the men of the village shivered and covered their precious parts that were needed to start a family. They silently prayed for the poor fool who had now lost that chance. "I'm sorry you can't stay, Naruto-kun." Naruto and the 6 paths were gathered at the gates of Konoha ready to head back to Uzushio. The people who left to retrieve Naruto were gathered at the gate to see them off along with Team Abisu. The only person among this group who wasn't there was Sakura, not that anybody really cared. Ever since Naruto had beat Sasuke at Uzushio, she'd slowly begun to get more and more harsh and violent towards him. It didn't bother him much. He had discarded that crush on her, and he was no longer afraid to defend himself from her if necessary. "I know, Hinata-chan," Naruto replied to his girlfriend's statement. He smiled, "but it's an unfortunate necessity to fulfill the duty I now have. This has to be done." Hinata sighed but nodded, "Can I at least come with you?" "Sorry, Hinata-chan," Kushina spoke up. "But I don't think that's a good idea. We can't have any active shinobi of any village beyond the expedition of peace. It will simply bring distrust." "It's okay. I understand. Anyway, out of bad thoughts," Naruto spoke up. "First, we're heading back to Uzushio. Then we'll decide from there which village we are going to go to first. More than likely the villages will have already heard the news by the time you arrive," Jiraiya smiled. "Let's face it. News like that travels fast between shinobi villages." "Point taken," Naruto smirked. "Well, it does make my job easier. Hopefully," Tobirama muttered. Hashirama overhears this and puts a hand on his brother's shoulder. He smiles, "Oh come now, Tobirama, be a little more positive. I'm just being open to other points of view." "Enough," Naruto spoke. He returned his attention to Hinata and kissed her. "I'll keep in touch, Hinata-chan." She smiled in return, "You'd better. See you, everyone." Naruto waved at the others gathered. "Take care, Gaki," Tsunade smirked. "Good luck," Ino shouted. "Yes, Naruto, go show the world your flames of youth. I'll give you one guess who that was. Don't get yourself killed. It'd be far too troublesome for everyone." "Again, one guess. You'd better show me that sword when we meet again," Tenten shouted, forcing the promise on him. "I expect to spar when we meet again," Kiba smirked. "See you later, dope," Sasuke smiled slightly. "Goodbye Naruto-kun." With that, Naruto and his 6 paths vanished in a Hiraishin flash. Sakura humphed, "Good riddance. That back was annoying the hell out of me." The only response was a glare from everyone present. "It's Tsunagakure. What is the point of all this paperwork?" Gaara thought in an aggravated tone as he wrote his own name in a well-practiced style on the paper. Seriously, his name must currently be the most written word he has ever used. "I pray to Kami that something interesting happens or I might go insane again." As if Kami was listening to his silent prayer, an Anbu appeared before the young Kazekage within a second after he thought, "Kazekage-sama, I bring news from Konohagakure." "Damn, I should pray to Kami more often," Gaara thought. "Very well, tell what is it?" "I am here to report that one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto has temporarily re-entered Konoha." "What?" Gaara's voice raised, for one of the few times actually showing genuine emotion. He was glad that his friend was back but confused by the statement. "Wait. Namikaze. Temporarily back. What do you mean? Speak." "As Akage don't know, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto has recently revealed to be the son of the Yondaime Hokage, Namikaze Minato, the Yellow Flash, and Uzumaki Kushina, heiress to the Norobule shinobi village of Uzushigakure, the Red Death. He has resigned active service from Konoha to begin a new mission that was thrust upon him." Gaara was silent for a moment before he asked what that new mission was. "He is, apparently, the reincarnation of the legendary Rakuto Sennin, the founder of the art of ninjutsu, and his new mission is to unite the shinobi world together in unity." Gaara in that instant showed the single greatest expression of emotion he had ever managed to pull off. His eyes were wide with shock and his mouth slightly hung open. He slowly leaned back as he processed the information. "I see. Thank you, you are dismissed. As Akage don't know, there's more." "More? Hi." Apparently, as the Rakuto Sennin Tensei he has the Sennins, the Rinnegan, and with it, he can use 6 bodies to control 6 paths that are gifted with the Rinnegan. These paths have been confirmed as the 4 previous Hokages and the 2 former Jinchurikis. 2 of them are his parents. Gaara was stunned, needless to say, "I see. Dismissed. Hi, Kazekage Dono." But that the Anbu vanished. There was a long silence in the office, almost as if time itself had stopped. A good time later Gaara finally smiled slightly. "Naruto. You may have not become Hokage. But you've certainly surpassed it." The Kurigakure. The new Gaudim Mizukage sat down at her chair finishing up her paperwork. Well, that may have been strange considering it was still midday. It wasn't so much since they had just recently ended their civil war and she now had a ton of paperwork to do because of it. It was a total curse by itself, but after just being in a civil war and having a good amount of time without a Mizukage, and she ended up with a never-ending pile of paperwork. She could almost cry. "It's not fair," Mei thought. "I wish to Kami that something interesting would happen today. Please. Just today." As if on cue, an Anbu appeared bowing to the Mizukage. "Mizukage-sama, I bring word from Konoha." "Wow, thank you Kami," Mei thought after blinking but shook it off shortly afterward. "Alright then, let me hear it." According to reports, one Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, son of the Yondaime Hokage and Red Death, Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Kitsune, has returned to Konoha but has resigned active service to fulfill a new role. He has been revealed to be the reincarnation of the Rakuto Sennin. "What?" The Rakuto Sennin as in the founder of ninjutsu. Hi, Mizukage-sama. She was stunned and silent for a very long time. Finally, she said, is he handsome? The Anbu sweat dropped at the flirtatious personality of his cage. I don't know. I haven't seen him. Well, if he's the son of Yondaime then he has to be. Whatever you say, Mizukage-sama. Anyway, do we know what he has planned? Hi, Mizukage-sama, replied the Anbu, snapping out of his awkwardness. He is apparently trying to finish what his past incarnation started. Bringing unity and peace to the elemental nations. She was silent for a moment. I see. Well then. At some point he's going to come here then. Make sure we are ready to greet him. Hi, Mizukage-sama. But Wagakure. Arg. Sandaime Tsuchikage growled in anger as another stack of papers was added to his desk. This is ridiculous. What the hell are half of these for anyways? Are they really that important? Yes, the secretary commented. And the sooner you get these done, the sooner more will be produced, the Tsuchikage shouted, kicking his leg in his desk. Ow. Damn, desk. How is the desk stronger than me? The secretary sighed. The old man growled, I swear to Kami that if something interesting doesn't happen I'm going to break something. Just then an Anbu appeared and kneeled to the Tsuchikage. Tsuchikage-sama, I bring important news from Konohagakure. Thank you Kami-sama, the Tsuchikage, Enoki, thought. Very well, what is it? The Anbu quickly relayed all the details of what had occurred in Konoha. The Tsuchikage was, needless to say, shocked. What? His cries called throughout the land. During this time, Naruto blinked as he and his paths looked around. You hear something? Hiruzen shrugged, I thought I just heard the Sandaime Tsuchikage. Naruto blinked, huh. Then he sneezed, damn it, how does that keep happening? Kuramasan prevents me from getting sick. His paths merely shrugged. Back in the Tsuchikage's office. Tsuchikage-sama. You mean to tell me that the son of our greatest foe is now the reincarnation of the Rakuto Sennin? Enoki shouted. His secretary sighed, Tsuchikage-sama. Blood pressure. Enoki growled but sighed, as it stands now we don't know how powerful he is. So when he arrives I suppose we have to be at least a little compliant with him until we determine his goal. For now, we'll try to act civil. The Tsuchikage stared outside the window, hopefully I shall not regret this decision. The Kumagakure. The Raikage, was busy working hard dealing with the bane of every cage's existence. Paperwork. It's amazing how something so simple and seemingly easy could cause so much pain. I himself began to wonder why the interrogation and torture department didn't use this method to torment prisoners. I swear if I ever find who writes up half this paperwork I'm going to shove one of B's swords right up his ass. Nearby a sneeze was heard and the sound of him running away, tumbling over every piece of furniture in his wake as he left terrified. Aside, damn it. Kami-sama, if you care about this poor soul cursed with paperwork, please give me something interesting to discuss. It was then an Anbu appeared, Rikage-sama, I bring news from Konohagakure. It involves the apparent heir to the deceased Yondaime Hokage. The Raikage blinked, I should probably worship Kami more often. Well, I guess it's never too late to become a man of faith. I see. Give me the full details if you would. After the message, the Raikage was massaging his temples. This was giving him a headache, so not only is he the Yondaime's heir, but he's also the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Hi, Rikage-sama. The Raikage sighed, do we know where he was headed? According to our spies, he is based at Izushiogakure. He's planning on visiting the 5 great hidden villages sometime soon to discuss ways to live more peacefully, as was the desire of his previous incarnation. I see. I'll believe he can accomplish that when I see it. Until then, dismissed. Hi, Rikage-sama. At Izushiogakure. Wow, you come right back just to leave again? Kyosu asked Naruto as they readied themselves to head out. Kyosu had found them in the Yuzukage Tower already gathering supplies for the long journey ahead of them to Suna. Yeah, Naruto replied. He and his paths were already preparing to go. We just needed supplies. We'll be heading to Suna. You don't mind staying here do you? Nah, Kyosu said, waving it off. However, I could check to see the movements of the Akatsuki and that damned serpent if you'd like me to. Aburama nodded, I do think it would be wise to know our enemy's movements. Especially the Akatsuki, Kushina spoke up, throwing in her own 2 cents. We might be able to spare a couple of Jinchuriki because, despite our power, I honestly don't think we'll be able to protect them all. I feel if we at least know the order we can act quickly and save some from their hands. Naruto nodded, not a bad idea. Kyosu? I will see to it, Rakuto-sama. Kyosu bowed before he vanished as a wisp of black smoke. A tick mark formed on Naruto's head and his paths laughed. Oh relax, Naruto, Hiruzen said to the ticket-off sage. You know he does that just to push your buttons, right? Said Sage sighed, yeah I know. Doesn't make it any less irritating though. Well if that's the case, came Kurama's voice from within Naruto's mind. You'd best be going if you want to reach Suna soon. Rakuto-sama. Another tick mark formed on the sage reincarnate's head. Shut up, furball. The only response that was heard was Kyuubi's laugh echoing through his mindscape. Naruto grumbled, yeah, laugh it up. Don't forget I can tell Gaara, and by extension Shukaku, that you fainted. Instantly, the laughter stopped. Heh, thought so. Naruto-kun. His mother asked him hesitantly, waving a hand in front of his face. You there? Naruto blinked, then looked at his mom, scratching the back of his head sheepishly. Whoops, sorry Kasen. I was having a bit of a verbal exchange with Kurama. Half the paths chuckled at that, and the other half simply sighed and shook their heads. It was then that Hiruzen spoke up, we must get going soon. The sooner we can get the other villages to cooperate, the sooner we can deal with the Akatsuki. Agreed, let's go. With that, the 6 paths moved out, their mission to unite the 5 great nations was about to get underway. In the Megacure, 9 figures in black cloaks that were covered with red clouds stood in a cavern of sorts on top of 9 of the 10 fingers of a giant statue. One had orange hair with Rinnegan eyes. Another, who was the only female, had blue hair and a flower in her hair. There was one with green hair who was black on one side of his body and white on the other, as well as a Venus flytrap-like appendage around his head. Yet another had blue skin and a shark-like quality to him, and on the finger next to his was a young man with black hair with a dull expression. Nearby, there was a man with long hair tied in a ponytail and what appeared to be a device of his left eye. Near him was a hunch-over man with a mask, and across from him were 2 others, one with silver hair and wielding a tripronged scythe and another with his face almost completely covered. They were the Akatsuki, a criminal organization made up entirely of shranked criminals. Why are all of us even hacking here? Swore the one with silver hair and the tripronged scythe. Zetsu has apparently learned some important news that will greatly hinder our plans. The woman with blue-haired replied. Oh, big hacking joy. What is it you have to report, Zetsu? The man with the Rinnegan asked in an authoritative tone as he turned to the black and white man with the Venusflatrap-like appendage. Apparently, the Kyuubi brat has somehow gained the Rinnegan. Zetsu began causing a stifled gasp and a stunned expression from a majority of the group's members. He claims to be the Rakuto Sennin reborn. Ridiculous if you ask me. Nevertheless, the woman spoke up again. One of our targets having the Rinnegan and having been off the grid for 2 years is a major problem. We need to decide how we are going to deal with this. Many of the Akatsuki members spared a glance at their leader. He was obviously not happy about the boy's claim and seemed ready to head out to murder the poor teen if he wasn't one of the people they needed to complete their objective. Zetsu, their leader said, gaining everyone's undivided attention. Where is the brat based and where is he now? The Kyuubi brat is based in the restored Yuzushiogakure, Zetsu replied. Currently he's heading for Sunagakure. Very well. I want you to follow them and discover where he is heading next. Once you do, come back here and report to us. Since we cannot underestimate him, all of us shall take out the Kyuubi when he's between Sana and his next destination. Until then, none of you are to leave Megacure. Is that understood? Hi, came the general response. Very well. Dismissed. Meanwhile, with Naruto. Achoo, Naruto sneezed as a chill went down his spine. You alright, Naruto? Kushina asked her son. Naruto nodded, yeah, but I just felt a cold sense of foreboding running down my spine. I feel that we're going to get into a fight real soon and that person wants me dead. Well, he has all 7 of us to deal with, Hashirama smirked. I don't think we have too much to worry about. HMPH, agreed, Tobirama uttered. They had made good progress since leaving Yuzushio and were now nearly through Hai no Kuni and were fast approaching Kei's no Kuni. The desert wasn't in sight yet, but it was close enough. The trip overall had been relatively boring to say the least. Nothing of any consequence had occurred since they left. That was about to change. Help. Cried out a female voice and instantly Naruto and his 6 paths stopped. Help us. Please. Help. Come on. Naruto ordered as he quickly made his way towards the origin of the voice. The 6 paths needed no other words as they were on Naruto's heels as they followed the Sennin. It wasn't long before they reached a bleeding woman near a destroyed wagon. 2 dead men were nearby, a pool of blood had already formed around the bodies. The boxes of supplies in the wagon were either non-existent or ransacked. The whole scene looked like a mini-massacre. The 7 shinobi quickly got by the woman's side. Bandits. She uttered through sobs. Bandits attacked us. They killed my husband and my brother-in-law. They kidnapped my daughter. Suddenly, the woman lurched forward and grabbed onto Naruto's Haori. Please. Save my daughter. She's only 6 years old. Please. I don't want her to suffer the fate I know they are going to give her. Naruto took hold of the woman's hands and nodded, don't worry. We'll save her. Thank you. The woman smiled before she passed out, alarming the 7 shinobi present. Ah. Mito. Naruto exclaimed. In an instant, Mito was trying to revive her. After a couple seconds, Mito looked back at Naruto. I've stabilized her, but we need to get her to a hospital fast. Naruto nodded, okay go. Akasan, can you follow her? Not that I don't trust you Mito, but should anything get in your way you can't afford to waste any time. No problem, Kushina smirked and nodded. And with that, Mito and Kushina vanished with the woman. Naruto turned to the rest of them, alright, now, let's go hunting. The male paths all nodded and immediately vanished in unison. A short distance away. Please, a tiny voice squeaked out through a stream of tears. Let me go. Smack. A broad, strong hand backhanded across the face of the 6-year-old girl who was bruised, bleeding, and covered in tears. The gruff, scarred man who smacked her sneered, quite, you little bitch. We'll get to you in a minute. The other 7 other bandits laughed darkly at the thought. The girl could only whimper as one of the bandits snickered, I doubt we've had this much fun in a long time, right? Right. Shut up. What? All the bandits instantly were up and on guard. They turned to see a young boy of about 15 wearing a haori and wielding what looked like a monk's staff staring at them with purple, ringed eyes. Who are you, brat? I am Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto, and I am here to put an end to this. Release the girl. Now. Or else what? The bandits asked, raising their weapons. However, one bandit halted, wait, Namikaze. As in the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha. Naruto smirked, I see you know the name of my father. What do you think? Impressed. There was a flash of yellow and a man who looked like an older version of the young boy stood there, not really. I was famous when I was alive. What? The bandits gaped. You're supposed to be dead. So are we, commented Hashirama as he and the final 2, formerly dead Hokages, walked out from behind Naruto. But I really don't see the big deal. Probably because we've been walking this world again for about 2 years now, Hiruzen replied to his former master's comment. Not so much a big deal to us now is it? The first 4 Hokages and the son of one of them. One of the bandits cried. This is out of our league. Book it. They turned to flee, however, they were blinded by a bright yellow flash. When they looked ahead they saw to their horror that the former Yondaime Hokage was standing in front of them with a dark glare apparent in his Rinnegan eyes. Minato frowned, you cowards are not going anywhere. Do you honestly think we're just going to let you go after you killed this poor girl's father and uncle, severely injured her mother, and then sought to use her as your own pleasure tool? Hashirama asked. No. We are ending your crime spree here and now. You can't do that. A bandit stuttered out of terror. You are no policeman. I do believe it is universal law that murder is dealt with by either life in prison or capital punishment, correct? Naruto asked though he already knew the answer. Correct, Hiruzen confirmed then he glared at thugs. How many people have you killed and how many women have you violated? The bandits were shaking in pure terror but did not answer. Well, 28, one bandit finally muttered out, but the 5 nin all heard it. All their gazes darkened and Naruto took a deep breath, now tell me. If I was a judge what punishment would I have convicted you with due to those charges? The highwaymen were silent, but they all knew and had practically soiled themselves with fright. Here were 5 Kage-level shinobi, and here they were, 8 bandits with no level of shinobi training whatsoever. They knew their lives were forsaken. Naruto looked on and sighed, I'm going to create a few Kage Bunshin, and you are going to go with them back to Konoha where you will turn yourselves in. What they decide to do to you will be on them. Your criminal days are over and now you are going to suffer the consequences of your actions. Naruto then spoke again after a brief pause, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Instantly, 6 Narutos appeared while the original looked at the thugs who were now slightly relieved, go. Without any delay they took off with the Kage Bunshin taking to the trees to make sure they went straight for their destination. After they had vanished into the forest, Naruto turned down to the little girl who was gazing up at him in awe. He slowly walked over to her and she recoiled out of fear. Naruto paused for a moment and then, even more slowly, approached her and held out his hand, SHH, it's okay. My name is Naruto. The small girl slowly looked up at him, Aiko. Naruto smiled as she stood up to look at him, Uwira's Kasen and a Tausen. Naruto's smile faded slightly, I'm sorry. We made it in time to save your mother. But your father and uncle. The girl's, now named Aiko, face dropped as she began to cry. Naruto held onto her in a comforting hug, do you want me to take you to your mother? Aiko looked at Naruto and nodded. Naruto picked her up and put her on his shoulders, hold on tight, okay? Aiko nodded and the 5 shinobi took off. Tsunagakure. Tsuna, the woman Kushina and Mito brought to the hospital was currently in intensive care. Kushina and Mito had used all their effort to reach Suna in half the time it would have taken them normally. However, the doctors had managed to get her stable and to keep her alive. Despite this, they didn't know if she would survive her injuries. They had come to Suna due to them being closer to Tsunagakure, even though they were technically still in High no Kuni when they found her. From what they saw from Naruto's vision, they had the girl and were now bringing her back to Suna. The bandits would be Konoha's problem. Finally, the doctor came out of the women's room, she's asking for you. How is she? Kushina asked. The doctor sighed, she has a 50-50 chance at this point. We've done everything we can. Now she's in Kami's hands. But that the doctor walked away and Kushina and Mito entered the room. The woman was lying in her bed obviously tired and bandaged up. She turned to the two women who managed to get her this far, thank you. Without you I'd. Don't say it, Kushina said, raising her hand. I know. The woman nodded, is my little Aiko, okay? Mito smiled, yep. Don't worry. The boys have got her and they'll be here in a few minutes from the looks of it. The woman blinked in confusion causing the two red-haired women to rub the back of their heads sheepishly, we can see what they're seeing. Part of the package deals with abilities with these eyes. She blinked again but nodded nonetheless. After the awkward moment, she slowly turned her gaze out the window. Mito and Kushina gave each other a worried glance, excuse me miss, could you both do me one last favor? Both women blinked at each other and then looked back at the bedridden mother. Could you find Akichin a good home for me? Both Uzumaki women were instantly alarmed and they could tell the men were as well as they saw their pace instantly quicken. Kushina frantically got to the woman's bedside, don't talk like that. You're going to make it. You will see your little daughter again. Tears began to form in the woman's eyes, even as they began to grow ever more distant, please. Promise. Me. Mito instantly left to get the doctors and Kushina still tried to get the woman to fight back before finally Kushina's hair lowered blocking her eyes, to promise. The woman smiled and managed to utter out, thank you. With that, the woman closed her eyes. And breathed her last. Kushina gasped and instantly the doctors were by her side attempting to revive her. Kushina and Mito hung back desperately praying that she would recover. However, what they heard next made them go pale. Hasan. Little Aiko ran into the room with Naruto and the men trying to stop her. When she saw her motionless mother, the doctors around her, and heard the loud beep on the heart monitor tears began to form in her eyes. After a slight pause she managed to utter out, Hasan. Last time, please. Save my daughter. She's only 6 years old. Please. I don't want her to suffer fate I know they are going to give her. Naruto took hold of the woman's hands and nodded, don't worry. We'll save her. Thank you. The woman smiled before she passed out, alarming the 7 shinobi present. Ah. Mito. Naruto exclaimed. In an instant, Mito was trying to revive her. After a couple seconds, Mito looked back at Naruto, I've stabilized her, but we need to get her to a hospital fast. Naruto nodded, okay go. Akasan, can you follow her? Not that I don't trust you Mito, but should anything get in your way you can't afford to waste any time. No problem, Kushina smirked and nodded. And with that, Mito and Kushina vanished with the woman. Naruto turned to the rest of them, alright, now, let's go hunting. The male paths all nodded and immediately vanished in unison. He slowly walked over to her and she recoiled out of fear. Naruto paused for a moment and then, even more slowly, approached her and held out his hand, SHH, it's okay. My name is Naruto. The small girl slowly looked up at him, Aiko. Naruto smiled as she stood up to look at him, where's Kasan and Atausen? Naruto's smile faded slightly, I'm sorry. We made it in time to save your mother. But your father and uncle. The girl's, now named Aiko, face dropped as she began to cry. Naruto held onto her in a comforting hug, do you want me to take you to your mother? Aiko looked at Naruto and nodded. Naruto picked her up and put her on his shoulders, hold on tight, okay? Aiko nodded and the 5 shinobi took off. Could you both do me one last favor? Both women blinked at each other and then looked back at the bedridden mother. Could you find Akichin a good home for me? Both Uzumaki women were instantly alarmed and they could tell the men were as well as they saw their pace instantly quicken. Kushina frantically got to the woman's bedside, don't talk like that. You're going to make it. You will see your little daughter again. Tears began to form in the woman's eyes, even as they began to grow ever more distant, please. Promise. Me. Mito instantly left to get the doctors and Kushina still tried to get the woman to fight back before finally Kushina's hair lowered blocking her eyes, to promise. The woman smiled and managed to utter out, thank you. With that, the woman closed her eyes. And breathed her last. Kushina gasped and instantly the doctors were by her side attempting to revive her. Kushina and Mito hung back desperately praying that she would recover. However, what they heard next made them go pale. Hasan. Little Aiko ran into the room with Naruto and the men trying to stop her. When she saw her motionless mother, the doctors around her, and heard the loud beep on the heart monitor tears began to form in her eyes. After a slight pause she managed to utter out, Kasan. Kasan. Aiko called out again, tears beginning to form in her eyes. Naruto's eyes darkened, no. I can't be too late. I won't allow it. I swore she would see her mother again and I will not allow it to be her dead mother. She will survive. That is my. Akichin, Naruto said, gaining the little girl's attention. I will bring your mother back. With a Rinnegan, I can do so. Really? Aiko asked. This information surprised the doctors as well. What couldn't the Rinnegan do? Hi, Naruto confirmed. First, we need to get her to an open R. What is going on? A voice spoke up, surprising the others in the room as they turned to see the Kazakage standing in the doorway. Ara. Naruto blinked. What are you doing here? I heard you brought someone in and I came to see what was going on. We found this woman bleeding heavily and her husband and brother-in-law dead. We saved her daughter from the same bandits and brought her to see her mother, but… Naruto turned back to look at the pale, motionless woman on the bed. The doctors had begun to disperse to go to their other patients. We arrived too late. I intend to revive her using Jedm. Rin Tensei. Revive her? Yeah, using a large amount of chakra I can resurrect her after summoning the King of Hell. Are you sure that's wise, Naruto? Naruto and the Six Paths blinked in surprise and Aiko looked on in disbelief. What? What the hell do you mean by that? Aiko here just lost her entire family and now we have a chance to resurrect her mother and you say it's not wise. Have you thought about the consequences, Naruto? I would have thought the Harbinger of Yami would have taught you how to think everything through and I surely would have expected 4 past and 2 Uzumaki heiresses to do that same. What the hell are you talking about, Gaara? Naruto asked angrily. Say you do resurrect her, Naruto, what then? Gaara asked about setting up the scenario. She'll be all alone with no supplies, no means of paying for a home, and stuck trying to provide for a little girl, while trying to provide enough for herself, and with no means to do so with. Aiko is it? Did your mother work? Aiko shook her head no, Kasen took care of me. Tausen was working a lot. Any other relations? Family? Again, she shook her head no. Gaara looked at Naruto again, have you ever considered what the woman would have to do to take care of her child? Or herself? I can't take care of her as I have an entire village to look after. People have to work to make a living, but to take care of yourself and a child with no previous working experience. Naruto, you'd be condemning this girl and her mother to a horrible life. There was a long silence. No one knew what to say. On one hand Gaara made a valid point of what the mother and daughter could go through. On the other hand, the girl had a chance to get her mother back and live with her last family. Even Aiko seemed conflicted. Would her life really be that bad if she had her mother back? Would her mother be able to provide for her and herself? Finally, Minato sighed, you know. This reminds me of what Kyosu once said back during training. Huh? Naruto blinked. Remember? A few months ago. During that bonfire in front of the Uzukage Tower. Flashback, Naruto, Kyosu, and the Six Paths were all circled around a decently sized bonfire before the Uzukage Tower. They had just finished another hard day of training and were enjoying relaxing. Kyosu was relatively silent through the majority of it before he decided to speak. Naruto, I must ask you something. Naruto blinked. Huh? What is it? Do you think good can come from something that seems dark and, dare I say it, evil? Wait. Where did that come from? Answer the question, Naruto. I don't get what you're trying to ask. Kyosu sighed, here's the dark truth of it all. Sometimes even the darkest of occurrences are meant to occur because it can lead to the brightest of outcomes. For example, your birth. As tragic as the occurrences that happened on the day of your birth, including the death of your parents, you must admit that in the end the results were certainly worthwhile, do you not agree? Everything you've done, be it alone or with the help of those few willing to, has made you much stronger and far more determined than any child I've seen. Naruto nodded though he only barely understood what he was talking about. Why are you telling me this, Kasu-sensei? Simple, Naruto. Because as the Rakuto Sennin you will have to make many very tough choices very much like any other Kage, except with you, it may be a decision that affects things on a worldwide scale. Sometimes, you may have to pick the lesser of two evils. Naruto looked to his father and mother as well as the other 3 Kages for confirmation, and all of them nodded sadly proving the truth of the matter. Slowly, Naruto lowered his eyes to the bonfire as he thought about this revelation. No one said the duty of the Rakuto Sennin Tensei would be easy, Naruto, Kyosu spoke again, knocking Naruto out of his train of thought. Just remember, sometimes even the darkest of actions can lead to the brightest of futures. Sometimes it takes something dark and cruel to bring forth a light and just. Naruto looked down, unsure of what to do. The lesser of two evils, this was definitely what Kyosu was talking about. No doubt about it. What should he do? Should he give the girl back the only family she has left, but give the chance that her family will find it incredibly hard to live? Or should he leave the girl with no living family, but give her the chance to live a decent life with a family that could love her like their own? Naruto was unable to decide what to do. Could he make decisions like this? For the first time since he received his eyes. Naruto felt powerless. It was then that he felt a tug on his Haori. Looking down he saw that it was Aiko, her tears now having dried though she still wore a sad expression. Naruto-san. What is Aiko-chan? Naruto asked kneeling down to her level so she could speak with the little girl more easily. Don't want to make Kasen's life hard, Aiko said teary-eyed. Want her back, but not if it makes our lives worse. The current occupiers of the room blinked in surprise at the little girl's words. They expected her to say she wanted her mom back, but it was clear that Gaara's words proved a point. Aiko looked up as tears began to drip from her eyes. I don't want to hurt Kasen. But that she broke down crying, and Naruto held onto her tight as he comforted the Nourfane girl. Kushina, Mito, and Hiruzen moved to help him. The following day. It was approaching midday when Naruto and the Six Paths entered the Kazekage office to discuss things with Gaara. Little Aiko had stayed with them for a night with her cuddling next to Naruto, and the following day she was taken to an orphanage. She was scared and it took Naruto promising to visit her to finally make her go into the building. The matron swore to take good care of her. Now, however, was the time to steal all emotions. It was time to get down to business. So I know you seek peace, Uzumaki, Gaara began. How do you plan on doing that? What we decided, Naruto answered, was that we all keep in touch and during a time that is good for all 5 Kage, we schedule a summit in Tetsu no Kuni with their permission. There we will discuss ways to get the 5 great villages closer. So, you are not going to just say that we're to get along? Gaara smiled a bit. Did you just tell a joke? Naruto blinked. Perhaps. Anyway, Naruto said after a brief pause. Just be prepared. It'll likely take place in about 3 to 4 months. I understand, Gaara said. And what may I guess we shall talk about? We talked about it with Kasu-sensei, Naruto answered. We were basically going to focus on 4 different areas. Military, economic, social, and political. The military will be trying to get the 5 great nations to try and make more military actions together. Maybe cooperative missions or teams. Economically, we are trying to trade more with each other. Socially we'll try to have more social events like festivals or some such. And politically would be stronger alliances and more meetings between the cages to discuss events that have occurred. I plan to discuss it better when all the cages are present and maybe even the daimyo if they are all willing to come. Seems like a logical idea though it is good you have at least some idea of what you're going to try and do to bring peace. There was another brief pause before Gaara continued, I trust you will let me know when this meeting is to occur. Naruto nodded, like I said, it'll most likely take place in about 3 months, but I'll give you an exact date soon. Try and see if you can get Daimyo to join as well. I'll send him a letter once I have time. Arigato. Once again, there was a brief pause. So Gaara, Naruto smiled. How's Kage life? Troublesome, Gaara stated outright and back in Konoha a certain Nara sneezed. All this paper is the bane of all Kage. But other than that. In unison, the 4 past Hokages all sighed and Naruto smirked, you know the Kage Bunshin. I know Suna Bunshin, Gaara asked, raising an eyebrow. They are solid. They can be. Ever tried using them? They share the same mind you do so they'd make the same decisions you'd make. Gaara opened his mouth to answer, but his eyes immediately widened and his lips instantly shut. He just stared off into space with the most expression he has likely ever shown. After a minute, Naruto and the path started to get worried. Gaara. Bam. Gaara's head suddenly smacked down and met his desk up close and personal. They could hear the uttered phrase, Kami damn it. The 4 Hokages were soon by his side patting the young Kazekage on the back. Naruto, Kushina, and Mito couldn't help but laugh at the poor predicament of the other Kage-level shinobi in the room. Near Yuzushi Agakure. Teosu walked again to where Tamashi and his daughter were training. They hadn't even known he was there until he walked into the training area. Shinami was the first person to notice him, Atausen. Instantly, she ran over and hugged him. Teosu returned the hug and ruffled her hair. How have you been, Shinami? Good, Atausen. She replied joyfully. Tamashi-sensei says I'm making amazing progress. Teosu chuckled, good to hear, Shinami. I look forward to sparring with you soon. So, Kaosa-san, Tamashi finally spoke up. What is it you need? Teosu grinned, how would you like some more? Comfortable living quarters. The two blinked before looking at their senior harbinger. What do you mean, Atausen? I'm going to meet up with Naruto and his 6 paths en route to Iwagakure, and I need someone to watch over Yuzushi Agakure while I'm gone, Kaosu spoke. I hope you don't mind. Will I be able to meet Naruto-san? Shinami asked excitedly. Kaosu chuckled, eventually. When he returns. Yay. Shinami cried out. Come on, Tamashi-sensei. Let's go. In an instant, she ran off in a random direction. Shinami. Tamashi called out, causing the young girl to pause. Yes, Tamashi-sensei. Do you even know where you're going? And aren't you forgetting your personal items? Kaosu added in. You could practically see the 3 dots form over the little girl's head. Before she blushed from embarrassment and chuckled nervously, whoops, sorry Atausen, Tamashi-sensei. At this, the 2 colleagues laughed at the poor girl's expense. In the Megakure. So, he's about ready to leave Sun Agakure? Pain asked Zetsu. The Akatsuki observed their plant-like member intently. This would be when they moved out to find the Sockled Rakuto Senin reborn once Zetsu delivered his message. Yes, he's just about to leave, said White Zetsu followed by Black Zetsu continuing. He's heading to Iwagakure next. I see, Pain trailed off in thought as he began to decide their next move. What are your orders, Leader-sama? Itachi asked. There was a long pause before Pain opened his Rinnegan eyes. Zetsu. Inform us again whom the paths are. Yondaime is the Diva path, and his wife, Kushina, is the animal path. The Shadai and his wife are the Preta and Asura paths respectively. While the Nidaime is the human path and the Sandaime is the Naraka path. Pain was in deep thought yet again. Kakuzu, you've fought the Shadai before, so I want you and Haiden to fight him. Kakuzu nodded and Haiden smirked. Of course, he can't kill a hacking immortal. I want you to fight the Nidaime. His water won't do much to you, and your chakra capacity should be able to outlast him. Gotcha, Kisum grinned. Itachi, I want you to take on the Sandaime. Your Sharingan should provide you a decent advantage against a former shinobi no Kami. HN. Madara, Pain said, gaining the blonde's attention. I want you to fight Yondaime. I do believe your Iwa blood requires you to gain revenge on Yondaime for his past misdeeds against you. He won't know what hit him, yeah, Madara smirked as the mouths on his hands chewed his explosive clay. Sasori, I want you to fight Mito Uzumaki. Your puppets should be able to match her weapon arsenal. Sasori nodded in acknowledgement to his leader. Conan, I want you to fight Kushina. You've seen the summons of the 6 paths, so you know how to counter them. Conan nodded, very well. And Zetsu, you remain hidden and help any of the Akatsuki who need your support. It will be done, both halves of Zetsu said at the same time. Very well, if you are all prepared. Akatsuki. Move out. Hi. Came his subordinates as the group of Shrank Nin left their cave hideout. And Sunagakur. Thank you again for hearing us out, Naruto said as they approached the entrance to Suna. Gaara gave the slightest hints of a smile before replying, anything for my friend. I hope your journey to Iwa turns out well. I hope nothing occurs due to you being the son of the Yondaime Hokage. I do believe they still have a grudge, am I not correct? Minato grinned, I think we have a plan for that, don't we? Correct, Kushina said, giving a Naruto-like smirk, causing a few chuckles. It was then that they heard a young voice call from behind them, Naruto-san. Naruto-san. Wait. The group turned to see little Aiko running towards them, while the caretaker at the orphanage tried to keep up with her. Naruto bent down to her level as she jumped into a hug with him. Don't leave without saying goodbye, Naruto-san. Sorry, Aiko-chan. I didn't mean to, Naruto said as he held her out arm's length. You're going to come back soon, right, Naruto-san? Aiko asked as tears began to form in her eyes. Yeah, as soon as I can, Naruto answered smiling. Now don't cry, Aiko-chan. I will be back. Stay strong for me, okay? Aiko nodded sadly. Hi, Naruto-san. Hey Naruto, came the voice of Mito. Yeah? Maybe we can convince Kyosu to let his daughter come with us next time we come here. Maybe she can hang out with little Aiko-chan here. Naruto smiled, that's a great idea. Naruto then turned back to Aiko, I'll see you soon, okay? Aiko nodded, okay. Bye Naruto-san. Bye, other 6 people. Naruto chuckled as the 6 paths sweat dropped, having just remembered that they never really told Aiko their names. Naruto then turned to Gaara, see you later Gaara. Gaara nodded as Naruto and the 6 paths took off from Suna. Much later, Naruto and the 6 paths were traveling through the desert approaching the rocky land of Tsuchi, no Kuni. As they ran they became aware of someone approaching them. They quickly stopped and prepared themselves for who it was. To their surprise, it was Kyosu. The Harbinger smirked, hey, guys. Kyosu? Naruto blinked. What the hell are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be watching Uzushio? Hashirama asked, his eyes narrowing. Kyosu shrugged, my friend, Tamashi, who worked with me as a harbinger for many years, and my daughter are watching the place. I felt a dark sense of foreboding so I had to come here. I think the Akatsuki may be after you now. You have no idea how right you are. Alarmed. The group of 8 turned to see a man with orange hair and Rinnegan eyes with 7 other nin in black robes, with red clouds behind him. Naruto's eyes narrowed, Nagato I presume. Pain's eyes narrowed, that is Pansama to you. So you're the Kyuubi who claims to be the Rakuto Sennin reborn? You may look the part, but your power cannot match me. I am a god. Naruto smirked, that remains to be seen, Nagato. Kyosu. Does his power compare to a god's? Kyosu shook his head, not even close. I should know. I work hacking Yami for Kami's sake. Pain sneered, you think you can beat us, we will capture you. We will bring peace to this world. Naruto's group raised their eyebrows in surprise, bring peace. With a somehow that seems more like threatening people to get along rather than actually convincing them. If you seek to take them and somehow use them to create a false peace, then I will stop you. Naruto and his paths instantly got into a fighting stance, let's see who's the real successor to the Rakuto Sennin, shall we Nagato? Last time, the group of 8 turned to see a man with orange hair and Rinnegan eyes with 7 other nin in black robes, with red clouds behind him. Naruto's eyes narrowed, Nagato I presume. Pain's eyes narrowed, that is Pansama to you. So you're the Kyuubi who claims to be the Rakuto Sennin reborn? You may look the part, but your power cannot match me. I am a god. Naruto smirked, that remains to be seen, Nagato. Kyosu. Does his power compare to a god's? Kyosu shook his head, not even close. I should know. I work hacking Yami for Kami's sake. Pain sneered, you think you can beat us, we will capture you. We will bring peace to this world. Naruto's group raised their eyebrows in surprise, bring peace. With a somehow that seems more like threatening people to get along rather than actually convincing them. If you seek to take them and somehow use them to create a false peace, then I will stop you. Naruto and his paths instantly got into a fighting stance, let's see who's the real successor to the Rakuto Sennin, shall we Nagato? Pain narrowed his eyes at the matching pairing from the boy across from him, yes, we shall. Akatsuki. Kill them. Instantly, the six paths, the Harbinger, and the Akatsuki all went at it in an all-out duel, while Naruto drew a Kusu Kariba and pointed it at Nagato, Nagato, you are going to fall here. You are a threat to this world, a threat that is the Rakuto Sennin Tensei am required to remove. Pain sharpened his glare before the other five paths landed next to Pain, you, boy, are going to die today. The Pain's pre-top path charged Naruto, and the fight was joined. Hashirama vs Haiden and Kakuzu. Well, Kakuzu, Hashirama stated as he looked to see the combatants before him. I see you're still breathing even after all these years. Kakuzu scoffed, yeah, stealing people's hearts has kept me going long past you. I wonder how much I can get off your corpse on the black market. The DNA of the Shodaime Hokage should get anybody's attention. Hashirama smirked, you couldn't defeat me last time. What makes you so sure you can beat me now? His partner smirked. We are immortal, you hacker. We cannot die. Mokuton or not, you can't beat us. Well then, I'll just have to prove you two wrong then. Aburama vs Kisame. Aburama stared down his shark-like opponent, who had a vicious smirk on his face. The sharp-toothed man laughed out loud, well, it appears we actually get to meet Nidaime Hokage. I am Hoshigaki Kisame, former member of the Kiri no Shinobigatana Shichinin SHK, and affectionately known as the Tailless Biju. Aburama couldn't help but grin, I will admit you have an incredibly rare chakra capacity, but the chakra capacity of A is something not you or any human, other than the Rakuto Sennin has ever achieved. Maybe so, but it's more than enough to beat you, Kisame smirked. I can't say I've ever fought a Senju before. This is going to be fun. It will be until you're dead, Tobirama stated before using his perfect chakra control to summon a water dragon out of thin air. Minato vs Tadara. Boom. 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 Minato was quickly using his Hiraishin to dodge the clay bombs that the appropriately titled Nukenin was launching at him. When the explosions finally ceased, the former Yondaime stared down his opponent, I may be just guessing, but I'm guessing you're the saboteur of the group. Name's Tadara, yeah, the man said, smiling darkly. I'm going to make you pay for what you did to Iwa all those years ago. Minato raised his eyes, you mean the nation you abandoned? I'm still an Iwanin by blood, yeah. I left because they couldn't understand my art. Minato blinked, your art? Yes, art, Tadara said, grinning like a madman. Is an explosion. Tadara suddenly threw a flurry of clay birds at him, causing Minato to prepare his Hiraishin kunai, well, shit. Mito vs Asori. Uzumaki Mito, said the scrunched-over puppeteer. Wife of the Shodaime Hokage and grandmother of the Godaime Hokage. I never thought I'd have you as an opponent. Flattery will get you nowhere with me, Mito scoffed. You seem to be a puppeteer from Sunagakure, am I not correct? Indeed I am. I am Sasori. Once this fight is over, I shall turn you into one of my puppets. Ah, good luck with that, puppet boy. I'm not going to become some doll that your ass can play with. Bring it. Mito exclaimed as she summoned a pair of katanas and entered a fighting stance. Kushina vs Konan. Konan I presume? Kushina asked, folding her arms, causing the blue-haired woman's eyes to widen. You know who I am? Kushina nodded, Jiraiya used to always talk about his old students. He would be ashamed to hear about what you've become. Konan glared at the red-haired woman across from her, what would you know? How would you know what he thinks? Because he's Minatakoi-sensei and the godfather of my son, Kushina sighed. Anyway, since you obviously aren't going to listen to reason, I'm afraid you are going to have to die. Kushina readied herself to summon, I'll apologize to Jiraiya later, but you're going down. Hiruzen vs Itachi. Hello, Itachi, Hiruzen said to the young Uchiha across from him. Hello, Hikage-sama, Itachi stated, causing Hiruzen to laugh. I'm not Hokage anymore, Itachi. Call me Hiruzen, the former Sandaime smiled, causing the ex-Uchiha heir to nod. I'm sorry about, don't worry about it, Itachi, Hiruzen smiled. Just give me a damn good fight. I want to see how far you've come since you left. Of course. Hiruzen. Kyosu vs Zetsu. Zetsu was watching from a distance when his instinct suddenly kicked in, causing him to jump back as a scythe swung forth striking the sand where he once was. Zetsu looked at his attacker and saw a dark-haired man gazing at him with piercing blue eyes. The man spun his scythe and observed his opponent, well, I can't say I've ever fought someone quite like you before, half black, half white, all plant. So, what is your name? It's Zetsu, the plant man answered. You are the Harbinger, correct? Indeed, Mahatsukai Kyosu at your service. I must say I've never fought someone quite like you. Nor can I say I've ever fought a harbinger before, Zetsu replied then laughed. I wonder what a god servant tastes like. Kyosu blinked in surprise, excuse me. Once I defeat you, I will feast on your meat and bones. Zetsu got into a fight stance and readied himself for the fight with the harbinger. Kyosu's eyes narrowed as he sighed, a cannibal. Perfect. And the Togakur. Orochimaru-sama, an Odo nin, called to his master. The snake-like member of the Sannin turned to the nin and glared, what is it? Speak quickly. Gathering his nerve, the shinobi spoke, the Kyuubi and his paths have recently left Suna, and the Akatsuki has left AIM. They're on a collision course. They are likely in combat as we speak. Really? Orochimaru smirked, interested. Finally some good news. No matter which side wins it will make things easier for me in the future. I do believe though that the Kyuubi brat is going to lose. I know the Akatsuki and they won't fall that easily. You thought the same of Danzo, did you not? Came a voice out of the shadows putting Orochimaru and the shinobi in the room on guard. Who's there? Show yourself. The snake Sannin cried. Before his eyes, a spiral of black chakra formed a man in an Akatsuki cloak and an orange spiral mask with a single hole in it. Orochimaru's eyes narrowed at the invisible intruder, you are Akatsuki. Was, replied the figure. Pain has let his pride get the best of him and now he has gone to fight the Kyuubi brat and his own paths. I have gauged the power and skill difference between them and find that the brat, despite his inexperience and young age, will win that fight. The Akatsuki failed its mission before it even arose. That is why I have come to you to help me fulfill it. And why should I help you in this endeavor? Who are you anyway? The masked figure chuckled before continuing, you know me, Orochimaru, as Uchiha Madara. Hashirama vs Haiden and Kakuzu. Hashirama dodged the furious swings of Haiden's tripronged scythe. He was smirking, I guess immortality didn't exactly boost your skills, huh? Haiden growled, shut it, hacker, and hold still while I lob your head off. Hashirama laughed, now why would I do that? Haiden roared and swung again but missed entirely, I said hacking hold still. Hashirama appeared behind him and my response to that is this. Mokuten. Hate no jutsu. With that, several, large wooden hands erupted from the surrounding sand and grabbed onto Haiden restraining all movement. Haiden was naturally pissed, oi. Let me go, hacker. And again I must ask why Hashirama narrowly avoided an attack from the other zombie brother. So, you finally decided to join in Kakuzu. Quiet, I'm going to finish the mission I took all those decades ago, Kakuzu declared. Right here, right now. You couldn't beat me then. You most certainly won't beat me now. Kakuzu chuckled, I know better than to hold back against you, Shodai Hokage. And you think it's mere coincidence that I have lived this long? Kakuzu pulled down his mask to reveal his young face. Hashirama blinked in surprise, you're still young. Kakuzu grinned and tore off his Akatsuki cloak to reveal his stitched-up body. Hashirama's eyes widened further and he slipped into a fighting stance. Kakuzu smiled, amazing what stealing people's hearts will do for you, eh, Hashirama? Hashirama frowned, so that's how you have stayed alive all this time. I find that ironic since it's obvious you don't have a heart yourself. Save me the words. You know it doesn't matter what you say. Now die. The former Shodai evaded the stone fist of the heart-stealing nin and immediately unleashed his technique, Mokuten. Sashiki no Jutsu. A sharp branch of wood erupted from Hashirama's arm and he used it as a blade to slash at his opponent. Having no time to dodge, Kakuzu used his stone arm to block it. The two Kage-level shinobi struggled in the clash, both determined to overpower the other. After a couple of seconds of struggle, they forced off each other, gazing at their opponent for a second. Kakuzu then began to laugh, raising Hashirama's curiosity and caution level, what are you laughing about? Kakuzu stopped laughing and grinned, I should know by now not to hold back with you. I made that mistake last time. I will not again. Behold now the secret to my immortality, Tokigaku's secret, forbidden jutsu. Earth grudge fear. Aburama vs Kisame. Kisame dodged another water dragon. This majority of the fight so far had been him avoiding water dragons from devouring him. It was starting to get annoying. You enjoy those water dragons too much. How about you actually fight me? Kisame shouted as a dragon narrowly missed him. Aburama allowed himself a small smirk, I may be a path of the true sage, but even I am not foolish enough or arrogant enough to allow a swordsman, the most powerful of the seven at that, to get at me at close range. Sword fighting is my sister-in-law's turf, not mine. Kisame smirked as he dodged another one, alright then, how about a deal then? The dragon stopped coming, and the shark swordsman looked at his opponent, what kind of a deal, Hoshigaki? You must admit that the constant water dragons must get tiring and they're annoying for me to dodge. This duel is a stalemate, so how about we focus on something other than ninjutsu? Oh, Tobirama raised an eyebrow. What do you have in mind? I put down my Samehada and you stop ninjutsu. We both fight, hand to hand. No weapons, no. I didn't think I'd hear such a thing from you, Tobirama said, smirking. Normally, I wouldn't dream of it, Kisame admitted. But it's much more interesting than the alternative. HMPH, Tobirama pondered for a minute. Very well. It was getting boring trying to wait for you to tire out. I guess this has rubbed off on me some. But do know if you use any when he starts, the result will not be to your liking. Yeah, I got it, but let's make the arena a little more our style. Kisame then flashed through a couple hand signs. Suiton. Daibakusui Shma. The great eruption of water flooded out like a tsunami as Tobirama quickly used his chakra control to protect himself from the massive torrent. However, the water did not dissipate like Tobirama originally thought it would. Instead, it formed a massive dome of water around him. What the hell is going on? Tobirama then heard from nearby Surum Samiyadori no Jutsu and he returned his gaze to his opponent only for his eyes to widen in shock. His blade was finishing up fusing to its master, leaving a shark humanoid behind. The new Kisame was grinning with razor-sharp teeth, ready for the fist fight. Nadamasan. I look forward to ripping you to shreds. Minato vs Deidara. Boom. 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 Minato was quite thankful he had invented the Hiraishin by now. These clay bombs followed him like the Inyazuka tracking hounds. He had to buy himself enough time to get himself up to where the psychopathic saboteur was firing his endless array of exploding clay figures. He quickly saw a couple more clay birds approaching him and smirked. Shinra Tensei. The blast destroyed the clay bombs and protected him from the blast. Minato sighed, I can't believe I forgot I could do that. Minato then noticed more clay bombs approaching and sighed, damn it. He quickly threw it away from him and teleported just as the bombs detonated. Minato looked up at his opponent and his eyes widened as a plan entered his mind. It then melted into a smirk, well, guess I'm taking a plan from my own son. Minato quickly ran through his hand signs and called out, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With that, 10 Kage Bunshin of the Yondaime Hokage appeared next to him. They all used and all teleported to different places. Deidara's eyes widened and sneered, oi. That's unfair, yeah. Shinobi don't fight fair, yeah. Minato shouted up to him while crudely mimicking him. Enraged, Deidara shouted back, think you're so clever, yeah. Take this. Deidara launched out a large flock of birds in his fury to take care of the Minatos. When they all reached their target he shouted out, Katsu. Haboom. The explosions ravaged the sandy area causing sand and dust. Deidara looked down and laughed, I bet that goes to him, yeah. Suddenly, a kunai blasted through the dust cloud right past Deidara. Deidara looked up in surprise as Minato appeared right above him, you lost that bet. Take this. Rasengan. The Yondaime plows the spiraling chakra sphere right into Deidara, knocking him off his clay bird and hurtling him into the ground in a large explosion of chakra. Minato landed nearby, direct hit, but I doubt it'll be that easy. Sure enough, as the dust cleared, Deidara slowly got up. He was obviously pissed, you piece of. Yeah, I got it already. Are you going to fight or what? Minato uttered impatiently. Deidara sneered, you want to fight, yeah. Fine then. I'll show you my C3 explosives. The large poof of smoke filled the air. Minato gazed on to see it clear and his eyes widened in surprise when they did. Deidara was now riding a large clay dragon holding clay figurines in his hands. The dragon took to the skies as Deidara readied himself to throw the figurines. Now, Yondaime-sama, let me show you my art. Take this. Deidara threw the clay bombs and Minato readied another kunai. Hatsu. A massive explosion ripped through the desert launching sand everywhere. Minato had barely managed to escape the blast radius with a. His eyes narrowed, well. Shit. Mito vs Sasori. Mito was spinning an Ajinata to deflect the many poison being fired at her by Sasori. She knew it'd be difficult to continuously dodge and deflect. She needed to get close to him so that such long-ranged attacks would prove useless. She took to the air using her chakra to propel her over Sasori directly behind him. She prepared herself to finish the attack quickly but had to evade a large, sharp object directly aimed at her. She looked back and saw a metallic scorpion tail protruding from a mask on Sasori's back. Sasori chuckled, did you honestly think I could be beaten that easily? HMPH, it was worth a shot. Mito then exchanged her weapon for a spiked ball and chain. Now it's your turn. Let's see if that puppet can dodge. Sasori quickly moved out of the way as the spiked ball crashed where he once was with a sand-splittering smash. Sasori turned towards the femme fatale firing his poison. They hit their target. Sasori chuckled, looks like I won. Mito herself smirked, you'd think so wouldn't you? She followed her chakra and then fell out. I guess you forgot that poison cannot affect me. I am a path of the sage. Did you really think it would work? My body runs on the chakra of Naruto and of my own soul. No blood, heart or air is required of me to stay here. Sasori's eyes narrowed, then why dodge and deflect when you knew you couldn't die to them? Just because they have no effect doesn't mean they aren't a pain to deal with. I tried to save myself the trouble but failed in the end I guess, Mito sighed. She then suddenly swung the ball and chain up and brought it crashing down again. Sasori evaded and turned to distract her with another barrage, but was suddenly met with the fist of the Uzumaki woman. The puppet master flew backwards and crashed into the sand with a heavy thud. Sasori slowly arose and tried to fire his again, but noticed his jaw and firing mechanism were shattered. His eyes narrowed. "So you think you've beaten me? What kind of puppet master would I be if this was my only puppet?" Suddenly, the puppet broke apart and out of it appeared a young man with red hair wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Mito's eyes widened. "Wait a minute, how are you that young?" Sasori chuckled. "I guess the information you have on the Akatsuki is not as good as you once thought. No matter, I think it's about time I ended this fight." He summoned forth another puppet, a puppet known as the Sandaime Kazukiage. "Do you not agree, Midison?" Kushina vs Conan. "Take this." Conan shouted as she threw multiple paper shurikens at the re-dared Uzumaki. Kushina evaded them and slammed her palm to the ground. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. A large poof of smoke appeared and out of it flew numerous bats with Rinnegan eyes that flew right at Conan, swarming her. Conan braces herself as the swarm of flying mammals surrounded her and began to scratch and bite at her. Their loud screeches blasted right into her eardrums, forcing her hands to her ears. Finally, she summoned up enough of her chakra to fight back. Shikigami no Mai. Hundreds upon hundreds of sharp pieces of paper suddenly surged from around Conan, ripping the bat summons to shreds. Conan glared at her combatant who was smirking. "You think you are so clever, don't you?" "Actually, yeah, I do. You think Minatakoi is the only genius around here? I am a tactician myself." Suddenly, chakra chains erupted from the ground entangling Conan. She however dispersed into paper, escaping the trap. She reformed in the air, this time with a pair of wings, and the chains followed her. The process repeated. A tick mark formed on Kushina's head. "Hold still, damn it." Still Conan evaded before finally summoning paper chakrams to deflect the chains, giving her an opening. She formed a spike with her paper and fired it at Kushina. Her chains immediately vanished as she dodged the paper spike, which bursts into paper slips flying everywhere. Kushina's keen eye caught writing on the slips of paper and she immediately knew what they were. Paper bombs. Boom. Kushina had narrowly avoided the trap as she glared up at the paper woman. "Clever, but not good enough to beat me. Take this, Kuchiyus no Jutsu." A giant explosion of smoke revealed the giant spider Kushina used during the fight with the Rutanin. The spider launched itself at the paper angel who summoned forth a paper sword and flew around the spider like a buzzing fly. She slashed the spider on its legs, causing it to rise up to strike downward with its fangs, giving Conan the opening to strike at its soft underbelly. The spider collapsed and the blue-haired woman turned towards her red-eyed counterpart. Kushina sighed. "This isn't going to be as easy as I thought." Hiruzen vs Itachi. Itachi's Sharingan eyes were blazing as he tried to lay strike after strike on the former Sandaime. He kept missing. Itachi's eyes narrowed. "The Rinnegan must help them more than I originally thought." Itachi missed another strike when Hiruzen ducked under an attack and darted sideways. He flashed through hand signs and targeted Itachi's open side. "Kaiten." Corrected. Itachi reacted on instinct and summoned the Susanoo ribcage to shield him. The fire deflected harmlessly around him. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. "Oh. This is interesting. This is the power of the Manjikyu Sharingan, Hiruzen. Let's see if your Rinnegan can match the power of this eye." Amaterasu 7. Black flames erupted and fired towards the former Sandaime in a fiery blaze of blackness. Hiruzen evaded the dangerous attack as it turned the sand where he once stood into hardened glass. The Monkanen blinked. "Glad I didn't get hit with that." "Then you might want to keep moving," Itachi said as another stream of black fire shot towards the former shinobi no Kami. Hiruzen moved again quickly, evading the blazing attack. Finally, Hiruzen had time to work. Kuchiyus no Jutsu. That was when the Monkey King himself, Enma, who hadn't changed at all since the last time Itachi had seen the summon with the exception of Rinnegan eyes. Hiruzen then commanded his longtime comrade, Enma, "I need the staff." "On it, Hiruzen." Enma replied as he transformed into the adamantine staff Hiruzen was famous for wielding. He swung the massive staff and it enlarged into immense size, striking Itachi, whose Susanoo ribcage cracked, sending him flying. Landing, Itachi stared down his opponent. "It appears that an incomplete Susanoo is not enough for my full defense against you, Hiruzen. It's strong, but it won't protect you against me," Hiruzen said. "You may be a Kage-level shinobi, but I wasn't known as the shinobi no Kami for nothing, you know. Indeed, it appears I must go all out. Behold the power of Susanoo." With that, a large red, skeletal phantasm surrounded Itachi's body. It brazened a sword and shield and prepared for battle. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. It appears time for the monkey to fight the giant. Kaosu vs Setsu. Hage Mijutsu. Yami no Bakura. Kaosu shouted as the black mass attempted to strike at Zetsu, who flashed through hand signs. Mokuten. Makijimiki. The wooden wall erupted and shielded Zetsu, but the blast had managed to crack the shield. Zetsu thought he was safe from the attack until the blade of the scythe pierced it and tore it open, revealing the Harbinger. Trying to hide. Not what I expected from Ensrank Nin, Kyosu smirked. He jumped down attempting to slash at Zetsu, who jumped backward. Perhaps not, but a true nin also doesn't fight fairly nor honorably, Harbinger. Suddenly, Root shot from the ground, entangling Kyosu. The Harbinger blinked. What? Got you? Time to die. Not this time, Kyosu grinned. Kage Mijutsu. Yami no Shio. The black mass spread down from Kyosu and covered the ground. Kyosu melted into the ground. Zetsu's eyes widened as he immediately tried to leave the black-covered ground. However, a wall of blackness blocked his way. The instant he stopped, Kyosu charged out of the wall seeking to take Zetsu's head off. Zetsu, much to Kyosu's surprise, threw off the Akatsuki cloak and split it in two. The white half and black half evaded the attack and one attempted to strike at him. Immediately, Kyosu melted back into the ground. Come on out, Harbinger. Afraid to fight us 2-on-1. Naruto vs Pain. Uzumaki Naruto, it is time you fell, and I showed you who the true Nidaime Rakuto Sennin is, Pain said. Naruto chuckled. Nidaime Rakuto Sennin. I never claimed that. I am the Rakuto Sennin reborn. Completely different. Pain glared, regardless of what you may or may not claim, I am the Sennin's only true heir. And I shall crush you, pretender. With that, 5 more figures appeared. The other 5 paths of the 6 paths of pain had arrived. Prepare to die, Kyuubi. Bring it on, Nagato. Last time, Hashirama vs Haiden and Kakuzu. Hashirama frowned, so that's how you have stayed alive all this time. I find that ironic since it's obvious you don't have a heart yourself. Save me the words. You know it doesn't matter what you say. Now die. The former Shodai evaded the stone fist of the heart-stealing nin and immediately unleashed his technique, Mokuton. Sashiki no Jutsu. A sharp branch of wood erupted from Hashirama's arm and he used it as a blade to slash at his opponent. Having no time to dodge, Kakuzu used his stone arm to block it. The 2 Kage-level shinobi struggled in the clash, both determined to overpower the other. After a couple of seconds of struggle, they forced off each other, gazing at their opponent for a second. Kakuzu then began to laugh, raising Hashirama's curiosity and caution level. What are you laughing about? Kakuzu stopped laughing and grinned, I should know by now not to hold back with you. I made that mistake last time. I will not again. Behold now the secret to my immortality, Tokigaku's secret, forbidden jutsu. Earth grudge fear. Aburama vs Kisame. I put down my Samehada and you stop ninjutsu. We both fight, hand to hand. No weapons, no. I didn't think I'd hear such a thing from you, Tobirama said, smirking. Normally, I wouldn't dream of it, Kisame admitted. But it's much more interesting than the alternative. HMPH, Tobirama pondered for a minute. Very well. It was getting boring trying to wait for you to tire out. I guess this has rubbed off on me some. But do know if you use any when he starts, the result will not be to your liking. Yeah, I got it, but let's make the arena a little more our style, Kisame then flashed through a couple hand signs. Suiton. Daibakusui Shma. The great eruption of water flooded out like a tsunami as Tobirama quickly used his chakra control to protect himself from the massive torrent. However, the water did not dissipate like Tobirama originally thought it would. Instead, it formed a massive dome of water around him. What the hell is going on? Tobirama then heard from nearby Surum Samiyadori no Jutsu and he returned his gaze to his opponent only for his eyes to widen in shock. His blade was finishing up fusing to its master, leaving a shark humanoid behind. The new Kisame was grinning with razor-sharp teeth, ready for the fist fight, Nidaime-san. I look forward to ripping you to shreds. Minato vs Deidara. The Yondaime plows the spiraling chakra sphere right into Deidara, knocking him off his clay bird and hurtling him into the ground in a large explosion of chakra. Minato landed nearby, direct hit, but I doubt it'll be that easy. Sure enough, as the dust cleared, Deidara slowly got up. He was obviously pissed, You piece of. Yeah, I got it already. Are you going to fight or what? Minato uttered impatiently. Deidara sneered, you want to fight, yeah. Fine then. I'll show you my C3 explosives. A large poof of smoke filled the air. Minato gazed on to see it clear and his eyes widened in surprise when they did. Deidara was now riding a large clay dragon holding clay figurines in his hands. The dragon took to the skies as Deidara readied himself to throw the figurines. Now, Yondaime-sama, let me show you my art. Take this. Deidara threw the clay bombs and Minato readied another kunai. Hatsu. The massive explosion ripped through the desert launching sand everywhere. Minato had barely managed to escape the blast radius with a. His eyes narrowed, well. Shit. Mito vs Sasori. The puppet master flew backwards and crashed into the sand with a heavy thud. Sasori slowly arose and tried to fire his again, but noticed his jaw and firing mechanism were shattered. His eyes narrowed, so you think you've beaten me? What kind of puppet master would I be if this was my only puppet? Suddenly, the puppet broke apart and out of it appeared a young man with red hair wearing an Akatsuki cloak. Mito's eyes widened, wait a minute, how are you that young? Sasori chuckled, I guess the information you have on the Akatsuki is not as good as you once thought. No matter, I think it's about time I ended this fight. He summoned forth another puppet, a puppet known as the Sandane Kazukiage, do you not agree, Midison? Kushina vs Conan. Still Conan evaded before finally summoning paper chakrams to deflect the chains, giving her an opening. She formed a spike with her paper and fired it at Kushina. Her chains immediately vanished as she dodged the paper spike, which bursts into paper slips flying everywhere. Kushina's keen eye caught writing on the slips of paper and she immediately knew what they were. Paper bombs. Boom. Kushina had narrowly avoided the trap as she glared up at the paper woman, clever, but not good enough to beat me, take this, Kuchius no Jutsu. A giant explosion of smoke revealed the giant spider Kushina used during the fight with a Rutanin. The spider launched itself at the paper angel who summoned forth a paper sword and flew around the spider like a buzzing fly. She slashed the spider on its legs, causing it to rise up to strike downward with its fangs, giving Conan the opening to strike at its soft underbelly. The spider collapsed and the blue-haired woman turned towards her red-eyed counterpart. Kushina sighed, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought. Hiruzen vs Itachi. He swung the massive staff and it enlarged into immense size, striking Itachi, whose Susanoo ribcage cracked, sending him flying. Landing, Itachi stared down his opponent, it appears that an incomplete Susanoo is not enough for my full defense against you, Hiruzen. It's strong, but it won't protect you against me, Hiruzen said. You may be a Kage-level shinobi, but I wasn't known as the shinobi no kami for nothing, you know. Indeed, it appears I must go all out. Behold the power of Susanoo. With that, a large red, skeletal phantasm surrounded Itachi's body. It brazened a sword and shield and prepared for battle. Hiruzen's eyes narrowed. It appears time for the monkey to fight the giant. Kyosu vs Zetsu. Suddenly, roots shot from the ground, entangling Kyosu. The harbinger blinked, what? Got you? Time to die. Not this time, Kyosu grinned. Kage Mijutsu. Yami no Shio. The black mass spread down from Kyosu and covered the ground. Kyosu melted into the ground. Zetsu's eyes widened as he immediately tried to leave the black-covered ground. However, a wall of blackness blocked his way. The instant he stopped, Kyosu charged out of the wall seeking to take Zetsu's head off. Zetsu, much to Kyosu's surprise, threw off the Akatsuki cloak and split it in two. The white half and black half evaded the attack and one attempted to strike at him. Immediately, Kyosu melted back into the ground. Come on out, Harbinger. Afraid to fight us 2-on-1? Naruto vs Pain. Uzumaki Naruto, it is time you fell, and I showed you who the true Nidaime Rakuto Sennin is, Pain said. Naruto chuckled. Nidaime Rakuto Sennin? I never claimed that. I am the Rakuto Sennin reborn. Completely different. Pain glared, regardless of what you may or may not claim, I am the Sennin's only true heir. And I shall crush you, pretender. With that, 5 more figures appeared. The other 5 paths of the 6 paths of pain had arrived. Prepare to die, Kyuubi. Bring it on, Nagato. Real time, Kyosu vs Zetsu. A dark laughter filled the air after Zetsu spoke those lines. Both Zetsus could feel the blackness creeping into their vision, and both felt a chill of fear crawl down their spine as Kyosu spoke from out of the black nothingness around the twin Akatsuki spies, afraid. Don't make me laugh. Fear and cowardice mean trembling and fleeing before something you behold. I have not trembled before you nor have I fled from you. I'm simply waiting. Waiting? White Zetsu asked nervously and on alert. What could you possibly be waiting for? The black side of Zetsu asked equally cautious. That was when a chilling, dark voice crept over Black Zetsu's shoulder, death. Zetsu barely evaded the scythe swing as it swung seeking to cleave him in two. White reacted by using his Mokuton to attack the Harbinger, but he faded into the black mist around them before the attack made contact. A second later a long crack was heard behind him and White Zetsu evaded. He turned and saw wood, thanks to Black Zetsu, shattering as a scythe plunged down straight to where his white counterpart used to be before fading back into the smoke-like substance. Kage Majustu. Kage no Heizo, a chilling voice called out and out of the mist a dozen, spearheaded, ethereal chains erupted and fired at both Zetsus. Suddenly, a black tornado formed between the two, essentially cutting them off from aiding each other further. For the first time since their creation, both Zetsu suddenly utterly and truly knew fear as the chains rocketed towards them at a blind speed. They attempted to evade, but were horrified to find their legs were encased somehow by the black mist. The chains struck through them with unrelenting ferocity. Surprisingly, their chains didn't seem to harm them, but they soon realized that killing them was not the main purpose for the attack. The chains suddenly reversed their movement, dragging the two sides of Zetsu straight towards Kyosu, who had just appeared at the chain's spawn point. Kyosu readied his scythe which seemed to gleam with excitement. When they were about 15 feet away, Kyosu unleashed his technique. Kage Majutsu. Shai Kama. Kyosu's scythe suddenly enlarged to about 3 times its normal size and was surrounded by dark purple energy which took the shape of a fiercer, more demonic scythe. using both hands, Kyosu swung. The blow cleaved their bodies in two, but the most devastating damage was not seen. The attack summoned part of the Shinigami's chakra, causing ruptures in chakra pathways and breaking a target soul, making sure the Shinigami's chakra was still used only to bring souls to him. This one attack was all Kyosu needed to end the fight and to prevent it from streaming even further out of control. Kyosu gasped, taking in deep breaths to catch his breath and to recover as his opponents hit the floor and the mist surrounding the area faded away. True, he was a harbinger of Yami, but utilizing the Shinigami's chakra was very dangerous. During the technique, one temporarily stopped living. A risky technique, one that couldn't be used more than once, but one very much worth the risk. He didn't even want to think what those two halves could do with Mokuton. Knowing how powerful the Shodaime Hokage was with it, he didn't want or need to find out how they compared. After recovering, Kyosu sighed, better join up with. Kyosu's head suddenly jolted with extreme pain as he collapsed unconscious to the sandy floor. His dark chakra flowed over him but, unlike normal, its presence decayed the sand on which it touched. Aburama vs Kisame. Aburama used his chakra control and his suiton to propel him through the water. He observed Kisame's fighting style with this new form. He seemed to be acting very much like he looked. A ravenous shark after its prey. He also noticed something else. That the water bubble was moving with Kisame. Kisame was the epicenter of the entire bubble at all times, and seeing how fast he was moving, it was clear to see that Aburama wasn't getting out of the bubble until he had closed the shark's jaws for good. Aburama knew using his affinity for water while underwater would be pointless and foolish. He knew what he had to do, but he had to get close in order to put the shark down. After dodging and knocking away another of the shark humanoid's assaults, Aburama looks around. He notices the earth not too far from him and he makes a determined dive deeper into the water. He hit the dirt with Kisame right on his tail. The moment Aburama hits the wet sand, he unleashes the full force of his chakra control. Creating an air bubble within the massive water bubble. Kisame had been plummeting towards Aburama in another attempt to kill the former Nidaime Hokage. However, soon he was only plummeting towards the sandy, hard ground. He was stunned at Aburama's display of power. Despite continuously draining chakra from the Senju, the man was still able to use such an impressive technique. The shark tried to get up but soon realized a fatal flaw in his shark-like form. He had gills so out of the water he couldn't breathe. As Kisame tried to undo the fusion or make it back into the water, Aburama nailed him with a sickness, sending him flying onto his back. It seems you became too much a fish to survive on land, Aburama chuckled. You truly are a fish out of water now. Aburama knelt on Kisame's stomach preventing movement. Do not worry, I will now end your suffering. Using his powers as the human path, Aburama pressed his hand on the shark's chest and relieved the Kirima Singman of his soul. With that, the water splashed down to earth briefly covering him before flowing away. Aburama sighed, fool, you were so focused on what you already had set you didn't know what you needed to remove to survive. Aburama sighed and walked away. He only halted briefly after thinking back over the battle. You are a fish out of water. Damn it, that is rubbing off on me. Mito vs Sasori. The puppet of the third Kazekage opened its jaw and a grey mist-like substance poured out. Mito recognized it easily. It was the iron sand technique used by the third Kazekage when he was alive via Jiten. Due to Jiten, her katana would be useless. Quickly unsummoning the weapon, she traded it for 2 chakra rods which she knew would be resilient against the magnetism techniques. The iron sand quickly formed into projectiles that fired at Mito, but she sped out of the way to avoid getting hit. She ran backwards, seemingly trying to get away. Sasori smirked, you cannot escape. He charged a third Kazekage forward, readying several spears of iron sand, ready to strike his opponent. However, as the puppet cage was catching up to her about to strike, Mito suddenly halted and thrusted the 2 rods behind her, stabbing the puppet through the torso. Mito smirked back in response, arrogant fool, you should have kept your advantage. The chakra rods began to do their work as they drained the chakra out of the puppet and deteriorated the chakra strings controlling it. Mito backflipped over the puppet and kicked off of it to do a second one, while also knocking the puppet down. Mito summoned for and twisted her body mid-backflip in an attempt to strike Sasori. The attack drove straight into Sasori's left shoulder. His only response was a smirk. Suddenly, something bursts from the retired puppeteer's stomach. Mito's Kunoichi instincts took over and she narrowly avoided the point-blank attack. She gazed at what her opponent did and what she saw caused her to blink. Coming out of Sasori's stomach was a cable with a stinger on the end of it. Sasori then performed a hand sign. A poof later and suddenly the Akatsuki robe was shredded with 2 poles coming out of his back, each with 5 blades on them. Sasori smirked, my own body is the greatest demonstration of my art. It appears, Uzumaki Mito, your demonstration of the Asura path is lackluster compared to me. So you made yourself into a puppet, huh? Uzumaki Mito sighed, well, now at least I know why my attack didn't work. Mito gazed over Sasori's puppet body once again before grinning slightly, your heart seems important. Guess I should destroy it. Like you even have a chance. Sasori charged in, his blades ready, Mito not even bothering to move. Sasori struck, however, the blade stopped mere inches from Mito. Sasori suddenly found himself unable to move. His eyes widened, wah. Gazing back, Sasori's eyes widened in horror as he saw orange, ethereal chains originating from the sand. They were restraining him, preventing him from moving. Slowly, more chains traveled around his body, keeping him in place. Mito smirked, didn't I tell you that you should have kept your advantage? Sasori didn't have time to reply as Mito drove through Sasori's heart. Minato vs Deidara. Patsu. Boom. Patsu. Boom. Patsu. Kaboom. Explosion after explosion Minato dodged. He wasn't given much time to react. The Iwama Singnin was certainly proving his worth as an S-rank nin, while also demonstrating the power of Bakuten. The dragon itself was making it a tad difficult to approach him with ease, and the barrage of explosives both large and small wasn't helping. So, Minato did as a tactician would do. He scoped out any weaknesses. He noticed that there was a bit of a pause between every few volleys of bombs. He assumed that had to do with getting more clay to cause explosions. He imagined he'd soon be running out. Right now it appears to be a battle of attrition. Which would go out first? Minato's speed, openings for movement, and dodging ability are Deidara's arsenal. Won't matter in a second, Minato thought. The moment the most recent barrage ended, Minato supercharged his legs and jumped high into the air. The peak of the jump ended right next to Deidara who was about to use the dragon to attack him. Deidara smirked, game over, Hokage. Minato returned the smirking and vanished in a. This startled Deidara as he quickly looked around before suddenly hearing two words from nearby. Anshin Tenon. Suddenly, Deidara found himself flying upwards off of the dragon he was riding. He looked towards where he was being propelled to only to be greeted by a fist as it shot him towards the ground. The dragon swooped to catch its master, but a large with four blades spinning around smashed into Deidara just as the dragon reached him. Dueton. Rasen Shuriken was the last thing that Deidara heard before the explosion, obliterating both Deidara and the dragon. Minato soon landed safely and smiled, I've got to thank Naruto for helping me complete that damn technique. Kushina vs Konan. The blue-haired Kunoichi known as the Angel was currently fighting off two massive wolves with Rinnegan eyes and chakra rods in their body. Her paper techniques were handling the summons pretty well. However, this also bought time for Kushina to form her own strategy against the other Kunoichi. The obvious response to paper was fire, so she'd have to figure out how to utilize that without it backfiring against her. It was likely Konan had already dealt with this issue before so she'd be prepared. She didn't have long to think as Konan quickly finished up to two summons. She was injured from the claws, but not fatally so. Cowering behind your summons I see. Konan taunted. Perhaps, Kushina shrugged. But it appears to be working. Konan sneered and charged with a paper blade. Kushina quickly flashed through hand signs and shouted, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a large plume of smoke, 6 Kushinas suddenly appeared. Konan took out the middle one with ease only for it to poof away. Konan very quickly became painfully aware of the other 5 surrounding her. Utilizing her power, Konan created a barrier for paper only to have it suddenly ignite with fire. Quickly lowering the barrier to prevent the flames from burning her, she suddenly suffered several blows from the redeeted mob, only to suddenly push them away with another blast of a paper flurry. The attack destroyed the other 5 clones. Konan was furious, where are you, coward? All she ended up hearing as a reply was, Fuin. Suddenly, seals all over her body activated and Konan fell to the ground, unable to move. Konan was speechless. She felt so heavy. Wah. What is this? Kushina suddenly appeared and walked up to her, seals. Wait seals. My clones planted them on you with their strikes. And now you are immobilized. Kushina then drew a katana to strike her. Konan closed her eyes to prepare for the inevitable. It never came. Konan's eyes opened to see Kushina shaking her head, it appears my son still has use for you, Kinansen. Hashirama vs Haiden and Kakuzu. Hashirama's eyes narrowed, this technique. To the casual onlooker, Kakuzu's new form was fairly disturbing. Out of the stitches across the Taki Masingnan's body came numerous, grey tendrils waving unnaturally around his body. Out of his back came 4 creatures made from black tentacles utilizing the masks to survive. Clearly, this technique was meant to not just destroy, but to severely intimidate, however, he was the Shodai Hokage. Hashirama wouldn't be intimidated by this technique, especially not now that he was the pre-top path. Do you truly think you can match me now, Shodai Hokage? Kakuzu smirked. Now, perhaps I can complete that assassination mission I was banished for failing. Sorry for what happened, but it's sadly not my problem, but you think this little technique can truly defeat me? Try me, Kakuzu. Suddenly, attacks of various elements shot at Hashirama which he absorbed immediately. Then he jumped backwards, barely avoiding an attack by Kakuzu as he charged at the former cage. The 4 creatures followed as well. Soon, Hashirama was on the defensive dodging the creatures and Kakuzu until he was surrounded. Kakuzu laughed as Hashirama prepared. Shodai. Mokuton. Makurik no Jutsu. With that, a massive dragon with a hooked nose made entirely of wood erupted from underneath Hashirama. He used the momentum from the dragon's emergence to shoot himself out of the way of the 5 attackers. The dragon quickly turned its attention to Kakuzu and his creations. Despite their best efforts, Kakuzu's hard monsters were easily felled by the wooden beast, easily the size of one of them. Kakuzu attempted to escape but was stopped by a flash of yellow. To his surprise, he wasn't face with a yondaime coming to the Shodai's aid, but the Shodai himself. Hashirama laughed at Kakuzu's expression. What? Did you not think we'd share abilities while we were training? We're all on the same side, you know. Kakuzu snapped out of his stupor and attempted to attack him, only to suddenly be smashed into the floor and explode upon him, finally feeling the supposed immortal. What the heck? Kakuzu. Haiden shouted only to look up and see Hashirama landing nearby. Hack. That was a clone. Hashirama turned to the trapped immortally and smiled. Yeah, good distraction, huh? Hashirama then got into a thinking pose as he tapped his foot. Now, what the hell am I going to do with you? Haiden could only swallow nervously and pray to Jashin for at least some form of mercy as a creepy smile formed on Hashirama's face. Hiruzen vs Itachi. The former Sandaime Hokage was smashing against the seeming impenetrable armor of Itachi Susanoo with his staff. Despite the staff growing to an immense size, it still seemed to have little effect against it. Finally, after a barrage of attacks from Hiruzen, he finally ceases and pauses. Quite a powerful technique you have there, Itachi. I'm impressed. And you, Hiruzen-sama, Itachi replied. Your offense is very impressive. You certainly were deserving of the title Shinobi no Kami. You were very close to breaking through Susanoo. The cracks are numerous. True to his word, Hiruzen began to pick up on the several cracks in Susanoo armor. So I have been dealing more damage than I thought, Hiruzen thought before readying his staff again. It increased to an absolutely massive size, and Hiruzen prepared to throw it straight at Itachi, whose eyes narrowed. You think this will finish the job on Susanoo, Hiruzen-sama? I thought you wiser. Hiruzen threw the staff straight at Itachi, but to the Uchiha prodigy's surprise, it quickly shrank down to a tiny size going straight through Susanoo and through Itachi's right shoulder. The following force threw Itachi severely off balance only for Susanoo to be struck by the staff again, only this time it again was massive and Hiruzen was behind him. Susanoo shattered as Itachi impacted the floor from the blow. Itachi struggled to move as he attempted to look at the former old cage. Wah? You shouldn't have told me your Susanoo was weakening, Itachi blinked and looked up at Hiruzen. I didn't know it was weak yet. As for what I did, I simply used the force of my staff in an enlarged state traveling to crush your armor and put that force behind a tiny staff that could puncture your Susanoo. But the force behind it, I knew it would throw you off, thus allowing a clone I had set up earlier in the fight to catch the staff and use it to land the finishing blow. Quite effective, am I not correct? Itachi smiled, you truly are the professor, Hokage-sama. Please, now, finish me off. Hiruzen shook his head as he smiled at Itachi, showing him he had something else in mind. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy it. If you want the next part of this video, turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others' videos. I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys in the next video. Till that, take care.